But okay. So
Wait, could you send it to my other Discord I have you on? I'm gonna message you on it
okay, yeah, message me on it.
because it'll just take a minute to switch.
And then some final things, and then we'll get started.
I forgot to read Coco. What happens after the intro? I'll just follow your lead, I guess. There was like 2 minutes of rebuttal or something. What happens after the intro?
So
I
it's
think we
gonna
go to
be
introduction. Is it the same format as usual? Introductions, statement plus cross examination, statement plus cross examine. Or I'm trying to
well
remember what the format usually is.
for
Actually,
this
I
one
think
I
I have
made
a
it
file.
for this one I made it it's gonna be 6 minute openers, 4 minute rebuttals, 2 rounds of 10-minute cross examinations, and then 5 minute closers.
So 6 minute openers, 6 minute opener, 6 minute rebuttals, and then what?
6 minute openers, 4 minute rebuttals, and 2 rounds of cross examination, 10 minutes each, and then 5 minute closers.
And is each person get a turn with cross examination? So each round is one person's turn, or
Or so Tiny's gonna get 10 minutes, Voice of Reason's gonna get 10 minutes, and that'll be 1 round. And then they're gonna do it again for 2 minutes for 10 minutes each. That'll be the second round.
okay, so 40 minutes total.
Um, yeah,
Okay, and I assume that it's going to work like last time, where one person can reclaim their time so that they can make the other person shut up.
um, yeah. So like, yeah, for both of you guys, if the other person is like talking and you are being timed for your cross examination, if you say I reclaim my time, we pause the timer and the person has to stop talking, and then you can resume what you were asking, or resume what you were saying. So keep that in mind. You can reclaim your time essentially.
Yeah. So an example
Lost.
of this is if I am yapping, or if Coco asks me a question, it's currently his ability to cross-examine me. So Coco asks me some stupid question about like something. Um, oh well, Coco won't ask me a question. He's scared. Okay, I'm gonna pretend to be Coco.
Okay.
Dream of Dawn. What's your favorite color? And then instead of answering, I just yap and yap and yap, or maybe I answer and I keep adding more information. And Coco heard all he needs to. Coco can go, I reclaim my time. And then I have to stop talking, and it'll go back to Coco being able to talk. And if the other person keeps yapping, moderators will step in to force them to stop.
Yeah. But okay. But yeah, with that, we can get started, I guess. And yeah, I'll do the introduction, and yeah, I'll cue to you, Nils, and like we'll make it
Then
work.
I'll give, yeah. Can I give the introductions for each person? Because I want to do it in a wrestler voice.
Yeah, yeah, actually, yeah.
Okay.
Um, so hello everybody. Hey, there's 89 people in here. Thank you guys for showing up. This is going to be Day of Debate 6. Day of Debate 6, the zombie apocalypse. Typically, I've been doing my debate promos with like the zombie theme. This is going to be the ninth or 10th event that I'm hosting, where for today, we're going to be hosting like one debate, which is going to be Tinysmawz versus Voice of Reason. Is creationism true? We did have other debates planned, but there was some change in like availability, so we had to drop like a bunch of debates and make this a one debate event, which is fine. Like life happens. So I want to welcome you guys to my channel, The Controversial Compass, where I host debates. I debate people. I document my journey to figure out what I believe in, and we have conversations about science, philosophy, and religion. With that, I am going to pass it over to Nils, who will introduce himself and introduce the debaters, and then I will say my final messages, and then we'll get started with the proceeding events. And I guess one more thing I'll say is, after this first event, after this first debate, if there's anyone who is ready to go and debate a topic on the spot, we will be doing spontaneous, like formal debates. So like if anyone wants to like, come up and debate anyone formally, we can run it and, have it, judged by audience vote. So anyone who feels like they can, kind of improvise or, debate off the dome, let me know and we can set that up. I am looking for somebody who's willing to debate the topic. Do we need men in our society? The person that wants to debate that topic, he thinks that we don't need men in our society. So anyone who thinks that we need men in our society, volunteer and we can host that formal debate for you guys. But with that, Dream of Dawn, go ahead and introduce our guest.
My name's Dream of Dawn. I'll be co-hosting with Coco today, and I will be introducing our guests for the legendary, the ancient question that's been asked since the dawn of time. Is creationism true? How did we get here? Now, in this corner, we have the one, the only, chosen warrior of God, VOR, here to defend the creationist point of view. And against him, standing at 265 pounds, 6'4", the one, the only, Tiny Science, the defender of naturalism, the fucker of Russell's mom, who in fact made him a sandwich right after, and a former Mormon, here to fight against the legendary son, not the legendary son, that would be Jesus, but one of his followers, his grand followers, VOR.
That was good.
Booyah.
Hype man. You're like a hype man. I love it.
Yep. And with that, I guess like I'll end the introductions with also last thing, quick reminder. Feel free to give gifts at like any point. First off to the debaters, not me or like Nils, but first off to the debaters. They're here taking time out of their day in order to entertain you guys and also to show off their expertise and the time that they've invested into studying this source material. It does take like a lot of effort to read the text, tons of text, evaluate and come up with like a belief for these kinds of things. So feel free to gift them. And if you want, feel free to gift me or Nils, but you don't have to gift. If you can't gift or, you don't have the means for it, that's totally, completely fine. Your presence is appreciated. Thank you guys for showing up and supporting the projects that I do. All we would ask is just simply like tap your screens and, like the live so we can get as many people in here as possible. But you being here is good enough and we appreciate that. All gifts are, appreciated. Your presence is appreciated more. We can't run our channels without your support, and gifts help me and, the debaters to run their channels. So if you can, it would be muchly appreciated. With no further delay, we'll get into the debate. The format is going to be, let me look at it.
I have it written down here. It's 6-minute openers. So each of our people will go over for 6 minutes. Afterwards, there'll be 4-minute rebuttals to each opener. 2 rounds of cross-examination where each person will go once for 10 minutes per round to examine the other person's position. And then finally, we'll have closers.
Yep. And with that, Nils, I can keep time or you can keep time. Either way works.
We can switch halfway through.
Okay, so I'll do it up to the first round of cross-examination, and then you'll do the second round of cross-examination and the closers.
Got it.
Okay, so let's see. Bear with me. So the affirmative is gonna go first. VOR, he's the affirmative. So you're gonna get like a 6-minute opener, and I can start your 6 minutes whenever you say your first word. I'm getting the timer ready.
Can you start it about a minute after I ramble so I can have 7 minutes?
I mean, like if you guys want, we can give 7-minute openers. It's up to you guys.
Tiny Science, do you mind? It's gonna be. It's 7 minutes is hard for me. Anybody that knows me knows that I monologue for tens of minutes at a time. So 7 would be preferred, but I can try and cram it into 6.
Okay. Honestly,
yeah, it doesn't matter to me. Either way, I don't care.
It might be good to make VOR bigger for his introduction because he has a camera. So it might be something more visually stimulating.
Yeah,
or
we'll
less visually stimulating because it's my stupid face.
I do the same, but I don't want to put you through that suffrage. So
No.
Well, let's do 8-minute openers to be safe, and yeah, that'd be totally fine. We could do 8-minute. So let me set the timer, and yeah, I can start it whenever you say your first word.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, Coco, thank you for having me. Tiny Science, thank you for being here. Dream of Dawn, great intro. I appreciate that. So, thank you for allowing me to have influence over the title too, because creationism is what I'm comfortable debating. This is something that, like Dawn said, it's an ancient discussion. How did we get here? How did humans get here? How did the universe get here? Clearly, it's been debated for the entirety of human history. To define creationism, it is the belief that the universe and living organisms originate from specific acts of divine creation, as in the biblical account, rather than by natural processes. The definition, I assume, Tiny, that this is your worldview, if not correct me, but philosophical naturalism or materialism, which asserts that everything in the universe is ultimately explainable through natural processes and principles. I think that something having created this is far more likely, and just with the definition of philosophic naturalism, ultimately these things would be explainable through natural processes. Sure, they may be at some point, but currently science has no good explanation, data-driven explanation, for the origin of the universe, what began the universe, the origin of fresh water, how did we get water here, and the origin of life. These are major, important questions that the current model can speculate, but they don't have a natural explanation for these three things. So initially, something having created this versus, hey, maybe eventually we'll figure this out naturally through some sort of natural scientific discovery, I think that's less likely. Naturalism is a faith-based system. And sure, maybe in 50 or 100 years, they will figure these things out and it will become more tenable. But in the current climate of data, we don't have a good answer for the natural origin of these things. If creationism is true, it answers a couple big problems that naturalism can't. One is, how did the universe begin to exist? In creationism's worldview, an agent outside of the universe acted upon and created the universe, which is in line with the laws of physics, right? No such thing as creation of energy, only transfers form. The biblical account says that this God specifies that Yahweh had no beginning. I think the most simple explanation for how the universe got here is an entity outside of the universe that pre-existed the universe infinitely with no beginning or no end, that had the agency and resources necessary to create the universe. This is what the Bible says. This is what I would say is the most simple explanation. And Tiny Science and I can talk about later why he doesn't think that's the most simple explanation. If you think of something like the game Minecraft, we know that Minecraft was created by an agent that exists outside of the Minecraft universe that had the resources necessary to create it. He pre-existed that digital world and he acted upon and created it. Logically, we know this is how things would work. The idea that the universe began to be without an agent doesn't make any sense to me inside of the universe. The God of the Bible also, and believe me, I would have forfeited my belief in the creation account if it didn't make sense. The God of the Bible existing outside of the universe is something that a lot of the other gods can't lay claim to. Hinduism has Vishnu riding on a snake and a flower comes out of his belly and that creates the heavens and the earth. That's an unbelievable worldview. If the Bible had that kind of worldview, I would say it's not believable, but it doesn't describe the creation of the universe like that. It describes the creation of the universe in line with the most recent data coming out of astrophysics and cosmology. And here's how. The lambda CDM model, which is the Big Bang Theory, has been the prevailing explanation for the natural origin of the universe. And this has been something that obviously science has adhered to for many decades now. The recent discoveries by the James Webb Space Telescope have upset this entirely. If hierarchical cosmic evolution were true, we'd expect to find early population 3 stars with no metallicity, fragmented proto-galaxies that were forming. This isn't what the James Webb has found. They've looked back to what should be the beginning of the universe, and the universe is fully formed. It looks like the Milky Way at 13.6 billion years ago with Jade's 14. This can't be true and the Big Bang be true also. But it does fit with the biblical creation account. Dr. Jason Lisle, astrophysicist, young earth creationist Dr. Jason Lisle, is the only astrophysicist that I'm aware of that predicted what the James Webb would find, which was fully formed high metallicity galaxies at the beginning of the universe. How did he get this right? Because his playbook is the Bible. His playbook is the creation account of the creator of said universe. The Big Bang Theory cannot say that this data fits it. They're scrambling to try to figure out how they can fit this data into their existing model, while the Bible is standing true, being verified by data. If the Bible were true, we'd expect to see an expanding universe. The Bible over and over says that God stretches out the heavens. Psalms 104, the Lord wraps himself in light, he stretches out the heavens. Isaiah 40:22, he stretches out the heavens like a canopy. Zechariah 12:1, the burden of the word of the Lord, who stretcheth forth the heavens. Job 9:8, he alone is who stretches out the heavens. So a fully formed universe that's expanding is what we would expect to see if the Bible were true, and that's exactly what the data shows. Go to the earth. If the Bible were true, with humans, we would expect to see that humans are separate and distinct from the animal kingdom. According to the Bible, we have dominion over the animals. If you believe in naturalism and you believe that humans were a product of the same processes that created broccoli and created amphibians and created trees, why are we so different? According to conventional thinking, there's 7.5 million animals, and there's humans, and we're clearly the top predator. We're the alpha predator. This is what we'd expect to see if the Bible were true. If the Bible were true, we would expect to have discovered that all humans descend from one man and one woman. This was discovered by Rebecca Kahn and Mark Stoneking in the 80s when they discovered mitochondrial Eve. Y chromosomal Adam came later. This shook the foundations of science. It's like every time they find these new discoveries, they go, this doesn't fit our model. And the Bible ends up being verified. This keeps happening over and over and over. All humans descending from one man and one woman is what we would expect to see. We'd be separate from the animals, which we see, and we would be the top predator, which we see. Civilization, this is amazing. If we could Google this, I could show you. According to mainstream thinking, civilization begins 5,000 to 6,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, Samaria. This is exactly when and where the Bible said that humans should begin. According to the Bible, Noah's flood happened, which I will defend. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. Noah got off the ark in Turkey, which is Sumeria, Mesopotamia is that area, exactly 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, 5,300 years ago, according to the Septuagint chronology. If the Bible were true, we would expect to see on the earth indications that this all happened very recently. One of the remarkable pieces of evidence is tree ring dating. Now, you can make assumptions with carbon dating, you can make all kind of stratigraphy, other ways to try to date how old the earth is, but we know that tree rings grow at one ring per year. You can see a tree grow for 30 years, 30 rings. By tree ring dating, the oldest trees that we have are right at 5,000 years old, exactly when the Bible would have said. 30 seconds, that's not enough time. My partner, or my debate partner, has a myriad of problems with his issues, with his worldview. It's not his worldview, it's a scientific worldview. We have dark energy, dark matter, cosmic inflation. Why are these galaxies fully formed? Why are there soft tissues in dinosaur bones? A lot of major problems. Both models have problems. I understand that. Neither of them are perfect, which is why they're both belief systems. I hope tonight we can look at the problems with his model, the problems with my model, and maybe see which one is more tenable. I think creationism is the more tenable, more likely reasonable option.
Okay, and with that, that will be the end of your opening statement, Tinysmawz. You will also get 8 minutes, and it starts whenever you say your first word. You there, Tinysmawz?
Give me a second. I'm drinking something.
I thought
I was just eating.
Bored him to sleep, probably.
Oh, yep. No,
I
you're
was kind of nodding off there for a second. Hold on.
I asked for 8 minutes because I was hoping I could lull him to sleep. That was my plan.
A cunning strategy. In this
Put me in
meantime.
a sense of vulnerability. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, sounds good.
Go ahead.
Okay. Greetings. Today we are examining the claim of creationism and if it is indeed true. The definition that VOR and I agreed upon is the belief that the universe and living organisms originate from specific acts of divine creation, as in the biblical account, rather than by natural processes such as evolution. This is the very basis for this dialectic. My interlocutor is convinced of this position and holds the positive claim that divine creation is the reason for the universe, life, and everything within it. This claim is derived from the Bible. It's the source. His claim is the point of contention here, and the goal of today's exchange is to examine the validity of that claim. To facilitate this claim, we need to examine directly the evidence for this claim. Now, some of you may be under the impression that this claim has evidence in the positive, which is okay to hold as a faith position. But within the realm of empirical observation and demonstration, this claim still has very low probability. What we are not going to focus on today is the obvious known and expressed flaws within naturalistic accounts. Even if these scientific flaws are expressed, which is a known thing within the field of science, this still doesn't raise the needle in the direction of creationism to point to these minor inconsistencies out. It doesn't raise that bar at all. What needs to happen today is the positive evidence for creationism has to be fleshed out succinctly. Here is my prophecy. My opponent will take these minor inconsistencies within the realm of science as a positive claim for creationism. Unfortunately, that's not how this works. The positive evidence for creationism needs to be demonstrated, shown, facilitated, and justified. Even if evolution and the Big Bang are shown to be false, this doesn't demonstrate that creationism is true. Why? Well, it's quite simple. Even if these scientific studies or collections of evidence are false, the positive claim for creationism isn't affected by this. It doesn't follow in logic that a negation for one thing supports another. This would be like comparing two data sets. The data set that has naturalistic explanations has information, data, and demonstrations within it. It has proper explanatory power. You can rule out the naturalistic explanations, but that doesn't mean jumping to a supernatural explanation is valid. This would be the empty set. In fact, to use the supernatural, divine, miraculous as an explanation, you need to provide an explanation for it being supernatural, divine, or miraculous. Today, I am hyper-focusing upon this claim of the divine. My prophecy for this debate again is that VOR is going to focus on the naturalistic evidence and the known inconsistencies scientists and researchers are completely aware of. And it's not giving a succinct account or a robust explanation for the supernatural, divine, miraculous outside of the claims within the Bible. And it's not showing outside of personal anecdotal experiences that it has empirical evidence. Today isn't the day for explaining how these known contentions in science operate. Today is the day my interlocutor focuses solely on the evidence for the supernatural, divine, or miraculous claims being made. Without using evolution or the Big Bang, my interlocutor must provide a succinct and viable explanation for the view of creationism. If the conversation deviates away from positive evidence for creationism, it just shows me that my interlocutor doesn't have a valuable account for his God or the divine or for creationism. We are examining this claim of creationism, not science. We are looking into how God made this place, not the Lambda CDM model. We are looking into Adam and Eve, not evolution. We are looking for God here. We're not critiquing science. Please do not deviate from supporting this claim. Please do not say your misapprehension of science is evidence, because it simply is not. Again, my prophecy is that this claim is going to go through mental gymnastics and devaluing the opposing view, rather than exploring properly the positive claim that there is a God responsible for anything. Let's see if this prophecy is foretold to be true. The onus is on you. That's it. Time.
Okay, I'm ending your time, and you had 3 minutes and 15 seconds left. So
Can I take his 3 minutes? I'm kidding.
if you both agree,
I'm kidding. No, I'm totally kidding. I'm kidding. Sorry.
but okay. With that, we will go into 4-minute rebuttals. So during this period, you guys will have a chance to rebuttal the opponent's opening statement. So let me set it up. Let's see. I'm using a timer on my computer to set it up. 4:00. Okay, and I can start your 4 minutes. VOR. Whenever you say your first word.
Cool. So we actually find some common ground here. I'm not advocating for creationism to be taught in school. If I were, I would want there to be the kind of proofs that we should teach the children this is true. And I don't think there is that. I think there's evidence in favor of it, but it is a faith-based system. He said repeatedly there's known problems with his model. I'm glad that he was intellectually honest enough to say that. That's impressive that he's willing to say, look, there's shortfalls with it. The reason why his premise that I have to prove it and he doesn't isn't valid is his worldview is taught in school to the children as basically somewhere between fact and unquestioned theory. If it is such a tight theory, then sure, it's taught as fact. But it's not. It does have major problems, and these aren't discussed when the children are being taught that it's true. These aren't discussed on, Cosmos and Bill Nye's dumb shit show and all these the scientific propaganda that's out there. The problems aren't talked about, only the evidence in favor of it. So I'm fine with this premise, but I would say that if this is how it works, you have holes in your theory, it's not proven. I have holes in my theory, it's not proven. Then let's take equal footing and say that your theory should not be taught in school as fact. When I Google where the universe come from, it shouldn't say the Big Bang. Where did humans come from? We evolved from primates. It's unfair to me that I have to prove this, and there's a problem with your theory, and I can't attack your theory, but your theory can be taught in school. So that's the first issue I would have. Secondarily, your prophecy is not true. Obviously I do these debates for hours and hours and hours a week. I could bore everybody and talk about evidence in favor of creationism for literally hours. Tens of minutes won't do it. It depends on what you want to talk about. Cosmology, astrophysics, genetics, genealogy, history, archaeology, paleontology, evidence for the flood, evidence for Adam and Eve. What do you want to talk about? You ask me any of these things, or I'll just go off and show you the evidence for it. I would say the evidence in favor of my worldview is stronger than the evidence for at least common ancestry. Now, I think that evolution is a thing. I think that adaptation happens in natural selection, but inside of a very tight bound. You get different color skin, different melanin counts, etc. The idea that we would eventually come up with new properties, go into the ocean, come out of the ocean, learn to fly, gain new organs, new limbs, whatever. This is a wild claim, and the evidence in favor of it does not match the levity of this claim. But I'm happy to spend as much time as you guys are willing to provide evidence for Adam, Eve, when they existed, the flood, the creation account, all of these kind of things. The things that Jesus taught about, these abstract ideas of mind over matter and faith, related to things like the placebo effect and the collapsing of the wave function. We can go abstract, we can go straight science, we can go any of these disciplines of science, and I am excited to show you the evidence in favor of it. I do want to, and I will grill you on some of the problems, just because people maybe don't understand how many problems there are with the model. You do, Tiny Science, that's great. A lot of the people that adhere to this, that come into my debates and say that it is true, don't know these things. So I think it's important to address both things. That's all.
With that, you had 44 seconds left on the clock. Thank you for your candor, and now we're going to move on to Tinysmawz rebuttal to your opening statement. Tiny, I can start the time whenever you say your first word.
Grapefruit. That's a good word. So I think that the issue is yes, VOR, I would love for you to show this evidence for creationism. I don't think that the topic here is show me evolution and the Big Bang Theory or the Lambda CDM model to be false. The prompt here is creationism true? This is the focus of the dialectic. This is the process we're going to have to go through. And if you want a specific example, well, then let's start with the universe itself. What is the evidence that there is a deity that is the causal authority that made this universe come into existence or brought about this universe? Or if this deity has current evidence for its existence, or if these historical accounts from this one specific deity is within the realm of science. But I think we should focus strictly on the origin of the universe and show how this origin is created, or how this universe itself is distinctly a creation. That's all I'm requesting in this debate. That's all we're focusing on. Now, I understand your misapprehensions to the scientific models, and there's always going to be change within them because new data presents itself. We see that things are inconsistent in the past. Who gives a shit? What we're focusing on today is the literal account for creationism, how this has an observation, empirical demonstration, a point of contact between a supernatural deity and this reality itself, and how this deity is causal within the realm of observation, empiricism, and science, and outside of the realm of biblical accounts, personal evaluations of these biblical accounts, or personal anecdotal evidence. I think we should focus on the evidence within the realm of reality for creationism, for this universe specifically being created by a deity outside of space-time. How we have any indication of anything outside of space-time, that's a mystery. So how would you solve that mystery? How are we examining something unobservable? How are we going past the extents of the natural world to examine a supernatural realm? How are we doing that? This brings more questions than it does answers. And if we're pointing out the inconsistencies within science, we already know these as human beings, as scientists, as people who study these things, as regular people, as people who are curious. We're still looking for these answers, and taking the claim that this place was created on face value is not enough. Using faith, it's not enough. We need to have more evidence.
50 seconds.
I'm done.
Okay, with that, you had 50 seconds left. So that will be the end of like the rebuttals. Now we're going to get on to the cross-examination. VOR, you're going to do your cross-examination. You'll be able to ask questions to Tiny in order to discredit his view and establish yours, or you can talk for the entire time, or you can talk at any point in your cross-examination for any amount of that time. And if Tiny is like rambling off and you need him to stop, all you have to do is say, I reclaim my time. We'll stop the timer. Tiny has to stop and we can reset. So with that, I'm setting the timer for 10 minutes. And you can start whenever you say your first word.
I think it's far more likely that I'm going to be the one rambling and he's going to have to cut me off. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so he's brought up some good points there, and I want to address a little bit of a meta idea at the beginning. I think I addressed it in my opening introduction or whatever, my opening statement, but I can't say that creationism is true empirically. We all have belief systems. I know I helped with coming up, with the title of of this debate, but is it more likely that naturalism, is it tenable? I would like to change the word to is it tenable, because I can't show you that it's true. And here's why. If the God of the Bible created reality, he's very specific that he's interested in faith and us taking a stance of belief that he created it. It's as though he actually created reality with some ambiguity, so you could look at it and believe or you could disbelieve. So I can't provide you evidence or proof that God created it from outside of this universe. We don't have proof of the spiritual world. Obviously, there's things like near-death experiences, and there's, kind of some weird quantum things that go on that could maybe be best explained by something in extra dimension. But I want to be clear that it will be a faith-based decision. And the Bible says this, right? Over and over. Abram, David, Moses, it was always about trusting God. So I have to admit, as a Christian, that faith is going to be the end result of this. What do we choose to believe? It is going to be a faith-based decision. However, if the God of the Bible is the creator of this universe, then his account would be true. And I agree with atheists that say if evolution is true, if deep time is true, the Bible isn't true. I don't think theistic evolution is something you can honestly interpret the Bible to say is in there. I don't think the hierarchical formation of the universe is something that's in Scripture. God says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void. The Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the deep. This is the beginning of the story. There's no Big Bang specifically. If the God of the Bible created this reality and the Bible is his account, it needs necessarily to be valid. So what we can do is provide evidence that the biblical account is valid. From there, we have to make a faith-based decision that God did create this, because we don't know. And I'm going to go back to the Minecraft analogy. A lot of you guys know I'm a simulation guy. From inside of Minecraft, and I guess I would ask this to Tiny if he's willing to answer it. From inside of Minecraft, what proof do you have that Marcus Persson, the creator of Minecraft, lives on the earth, exists in our universe, and that he created Minecraft. Can I ask a question here, Coco?
Yeah, you can talk for the whole. Here, let me pause your time. You can talk for the whole time, or ask questions in order to establish your side, or discredit Tiny's side, or you can at any part during this
Okay.
begin to talk and like just talk for the whole time. But
Okay,
yeah,
cool. So yeah, I'll ask that question a little bit clearer. From inside of Minecraft, or really Mario, any video game, what proof do you have that a human being in our universe created said game?
I don't think that that's analogous.
Why?
I don't think that we are created or designed or characters in a game set up by some sort of causal authority.
Okay, but I asked the question, so you choose not to answer it?
That's my answer. I don't think it's an analogous question. I don't think that we're a simulation. I don't think that there's a designer, and I don't think that we were designed by this designer.
Okay, well, Tiny Science says we're not in a simulation. There are far better thinkers than he and I in science, in computer science, that seriously consider the idea of a simulation. Nicholas Bostrom, Leonard Susskind, Demis Hassabis, George Hotz, we could go down the list. He's just saying simulation isn't a thing. That's fine, this isn't a simulation discussion, but I'll answer it for him. From inside of the game, you can't prove that the designer is in another reality on the Earth. And I think this is analogous because if we are in a created order, to say you need to prove the source reality that you come from, it may be somewhere between hard or impossible to do so, depending on what the rules are of between the two worlds, whatever. But so I'll go back to if the Bible is true, then the biblical account should be accurate. Tiny Science, do you agree that as of now, the data coming back from the James Webb Space Telescope is debunking the Big Bang in real time, or it's going to be very difficult to salvage the Big Bang based on the data coming back from the JWST?
I think that this demonstrates creationism to be true. I'm just trying to stay on topic.
Okay, I'm not sure why you're not answering these questions, but okay, the biblical account, which says a fully formed universe, does the data coming back from the James Webb better support the Lambda CDM model or the biblical account of a fully formed universe?
I think it supports the biblical account in any way, shape, or form.
Do we see hierarchical cosmic evolution in space with the James Webb Space Telescope?
Put the moniker hierarchical, I'd put just cosmological evolution.
What data are you seeing that supports cosmic evolution with what the James Webb is seeing? Do you know what they're finding? High metallicity, fully formed, fully massive galaxies at the beginning of the universe.
Examine the data. I'm unaware of this.
I can pull it up. I can share my screen if you want.
See what this has to do with the creator.
I think I've made it pretty clear. If the God of the Bible created this reality and he documented in a book his creation, the data currently better supports the biblical creation account than it does the best model of a natural origin of the universe. So from a tenability or from a what's more likely, currently the data better fits a fully formed universe than does a cosmic evolution model. And so how does it support a creator? This is how the Bible explains the creation of the universe. The Bible said what the data we're finding in 2025 is agreeing with. So if the Bible is true and God authored the Bible, scientifically, it's aging very well, and it's as we get more data in, it's becoming more supported by data. I think that's again, I'm not asking anybody, it's not going to be a proof thing, but if the God of the Bible is real and the creation account is real, we would expect the data to better align with the biblical account than a natural origin of the universe model. No comment. Okay. Did you want to address that or no? You're just going to disagree, right?
Just don't know how it shows the creator.
I'll make this point again because it's going to be important to the discussion. If the creator is the God of the Bible, then the historical document that he explained his creation, it would need to be accurate scientifically. That's how it would support the idea that the biblical creator is the creator of the universe.
How that follows.
Okay. All right. I think we're lost in that. We're not going to get anywhere at that point. Okay. Are you a quantum physicist at all? Are you into quantum physics?
I'm on it, but I don't claim to be a quantum physicist, no.
Okay. Are you familiar with the verification of quantum entanglement with the Nobel laureates proving with a very high p-value that the universe is either not local or not real or not locally real? Are you familiar with this?
But I don't think that has anything to do with the creator.
Okay. Well, so for the people in the chat that maybe do or do not know this, there is a phenomenon in the universe that Einstein tried to just kind of poo-poo away called quantum entanglement, where quantum entangled particles are reactive to one another in real time, irrespective of location. So they could be a billion light years apart, and they're interacting in real time. This is why science is saying that the Nobel Prize was awarded for the universe not being locally real. This idea that we are in a non-material or amaterial reality, a non-physical fundamental reality, supports the biblical account for many reasons. The God of the Bible says specifically that he created this reality with his word. So in this scenario, information would be fundamental because his words create reality. Jesus, who is the Son of the living God, says in multiple places that your faith has made you whole. You can move a mountain into the sea. There's a lot of allusions with an A in the Bible that this reality is something like a test, where base reality is where the kingdom of heaven is. Us discovering that the universe isn't locally real is incompatible with naturalism, but supports the idea that we are in a created order that seems to be created around the consciousness of man, or seems that we have some sort of higher connectivity with the outcome of the probability of the universe than does naturalism. So this doesn't, again, I'm not going to be able to prove that there's a creator, but a fully formed universe in a universe that's not locally real it better fits the data of the biblical account than it would scientific naturalism or a purely natural origin of the universe. No? Okay.
So I don't think that this has anything to do with demonstrating that there's a causal mind, a creator,
Finish up your
or
sentence.
that this has anything to do with creationism.
Okay. With that, we will move on to Tinysmawz, 10-minute cross-examination period. It will start whenever you say your first word.
Okay, cool. So how, like the last thing we were talking about was quantum entanglement. How does this show directly that there's a creator, and how is this creator involved in this process?
I've been pretty clear that I can't prove a creator. The reason I bring up quantum entanglement
That's
is...
a concession?
Yeah, I can't... I never said I can prove a creator. I can't prove that there's...
You do realize that the topic... You do realize that the topic is creationism true? And that's what we're discussing, is the evidence that demonstrates a creator or creationism. So are you saying that you can't demonstrate creationism to be true?
I said in my opening statement that I'm looking at which is a more tenable model, which is a more likely model, creationism or naturalism, and I believe that creationism is more likely. As far as proving it, obviously if VOR on TikTok had proven God, we wouldn't be on TikTok talking about this. We're discussing worldviews, and I'm advocating that the creation worldview or creationism is a more tenable belief system, is more believable than naturalism. And the reason I bring up quantum...
Does being tenable mean that it's true?
More likely to be true.
So how is anything you brought up, the James Webb, this quantum entanglement, or any of these other topics, how are these directly related to God, and how are we seeing this correlative value? Because This is the debate. I'm just trying to get you to focus here. Now, I know that we're fully aware of these inconsistencies within the scientific models. That doesn't demonstrate that these are completely invalid and therefore God. Now, what we need to do is find the data set that there is a creator. This would help demonstrate and facilitate the claim that creationism is true. So I just am curious how evaluating scientific inconsistencies that the scientific world is very aware of is going to show creationism. I don't know how that follows.
Right. And I've communicated it, and I will continue to communicate it, that which model is the data better supporting. Again, from the beginning, I've been clear.
Let's look at the creation model. What exactly does that entail? Let's start at the very beginning. So with the available evidence, how are we seeing that God said, let there be light?
With the available evidence, how are we seeing God said, let there be light? We don't see any evidence of what let there be light was. We don't understand. We don't know what that is specifically because the sun was created later.
Okay.
So is light a supernatural?
Sounds like an inconsistency within the model itself then, right?
No.
So to say like, let there be light, and then a few days later after this event, there's a sun, what is this light referring to? Is it a metaphor? Is it entirely a metaphor? Or is it something that is describing a physical process within space-time? And it's more literal. Okay, so how can light exist without a light source?
Yeah, I'll show you a way to think about this. Let me see if I can flip my camera around. I can. Look at that. Here I go. Okay, so this is a animator in Blender who creates a world. How to create a world in 1 minute is actually what this is titled. So he starts off with a
computer program.
It is, yeah. I told you I'm a simulation guy, but it's you asked what the light would be, and I'm just showing you a potentiality here of what this is. Okay, so in this scenario, he creates an Earth.
An actual thing?
What do you mean? Yeah, this is how the Earth was created. I have video footage of it. Congratulations, I've just won the world. No, this is a Blender. This is a guy creating the Earth in
Reclaim my time real quick. So hold on. Okay. Before we go on to this diatribe, how does this relate to a God creating the universe? Are we doing speculation here? We're doing
You asked me very specifically.
I'm not interested in Well, I'm not interested in speculation and hypotheticals. I want to know what this slide is referring to.
Yeah,
and if we're having to speculate that means that, well, hold on, I reclaim my time. It's okay. I think that what we're doing here is we're showing something that is a hypothetical, right? This is what we do within the realm of science. You're trying to do science.
Yeah, doing science.
Now.
Yeah.
And what we're not doing, right, is we're not demonstrating this creator doing anything.
Okay, do you remember the question you asked me?
Yes, I do, but I don't think that this is demonstrating how this is God creating life. What is the source that shows that God created light? And what is this light? Light.
Right.
Light. I said light.
So we don't know what the light is.
So how does this show
in
that
Hebrew,
God
it's the word
created light?
VOR. So I'm showing you proof of concept. It said, let there be light. So there was light first, and then he creates the sun later, meaning that...
Wait, hold on a second. Stop. Hold on. This is, if you're saying this is proof of concept, anyone can do this for anything, right? This doesn't demonstrate that this is an actuality within space-time. Right. So what this is doing is demonstrating how someone can take in a representation in a computer model of the outside world. This doesn't show us that this is an actuality within the realm itself of existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you asked me what the light would be following the story, and I'm giving you an example.
It's not demonstrating the validity of the Bible. It just simply isn't.
Okay, the question you asked me is what was the light before the sun, and then you said this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
There's a contradiction, and I'm showing you that it's not a contradiction. All I'm showing you very simply.
I didn't say it was a contradiction. I never said that. All I'm saying is
that it didn't make sense that the sun could be created on day 4.
What I specifically said was this doesn't demonstrate that you have any knowledge of what this light is, how you reconcile the Bible itself other than your own imagination, and your
Sure.
own biases.
Sure.
That's all this is doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. You asked me a question. I'm answering it based on my biases. Yeah.
For instance, yeah.
Yep.
I
There
agree.
you go.
So this isn't showing if it's true. It's showing that it's true.
Where
to
did I ever,
you
where
as
did
a
I ever
personal
say
opinion.
that I was going to show you exactly what the light was and that this is going to prove it or be true? I think actually this is an important part of this discussion because I'm hoping we can have a good discussion, but it's possible that we're not going to be able to. Let me state my position
I'd
again.
like to reclaim my time. This is my time, VOR. I want you to focus on the demonstration, right? The validation, the information of the model for creationism, right?
Oh, so you're asking me something different
instead
than
of
the
like
light
going
question
and
that you're not letting me answer.
I'm asking you the
New
questions
question.
that
Okay, I reclaim his
that
time or whatever. New
okay.
question.
Yeah.
Got it.
You can't. Well, okay. So so instead of just showing us the evidence that this is true, you're showing us a hypothetical model. You're not showing us like a demonstration.
You don't even know
that
what I'm
this is
showing
an
you.
actual thing.
You don't understand what I'm showing you.
Yes,
because
I do.
You asked me a question and you didn't let me answer.
Well,
it.
hold on a second.
You're onto something
Hold on. I
entirely
reclaim
else.
my time. I reclaim my time. Well, because it didn't lead anywhere. Right. So the reason why we're going to the focus of this conversation instead of deflecting into something else is this creator actually there? The evidence for that. If anything, we're going off into a tangent that you're trying to drag us into, and I'm trying to refocus you. So that's why I'm changing the topic. That's why I'm changing the question, because it's not leading into a direction that is showing us succinct evidence behind a creator being responsible for anything
Is
in
this
this universe.
host? Is this his job to decide if I'm answering the question and change it because he arbitrarily thinks I'm not answering the
Play
question?
my time.
Well,
I
it
don't
doesn't
think
matter.
that this meta
Just to
is
interject
helping.
for two. Just
Let me
interject for 2
pause
seconds.
for let me
Yeah.
let me pause for a quick second. I think he can give commentary on whether you're answering the question or not answering the question. Yeah.
A good way to think about it is it's kind of like one of you guys is on trial for prosecution, and so it'll switch between you guys. So Tiny, in this sense, is kind of acting as the lawyer asking you questions while you're on the stand, and he can at any point say he reclaims his time, at which point you have to stop talking. Of course, you can do the same to him when it is your turn to cross-examine him, and you kind of have dominance in
fair.
the conversation.
And we'll resume. There is 1 minute and 22 seconds left on the clock for Tiny's turn.
Give him a couple extra minutes because I wasn't clear on what we were doing there. So yeah, give him some time. I don't want to take from his time.
Oh, okay. And yeah, we'll start it whenever you say your first word.
Okay, cool. So the issue here is I'm asking you for evidence of creationism. Do you understand that, right?
Before you ask me a different question, yeah.
Okay.
Then you asked me a
So
different question that I
what
was
would this-
addressing, and you said I couldn't answer.
What is this? So you don't have to like keep talking to explain like your opinion. Here's what we're going to do. You should provide the evidence for creationism.
Okay.
Let's start with the beginning of the universe.
Okay. Okay. So, as I stated before, God exists in what he calls the kingdom of heaven, base reality, I would call this, and he acted to create this reality. He created this reality. Some people say ex nihilo. From the perspective of the universe, there wasn't a universe, and then there was a universe. I can't provide you evidence that God is in the spiritual world and, specifically the action of creating the universe, because we don't know that. It's going to be a faith-based decision. What I've said, and I'll keep saying, if the biblical creation account is true, scientifically what God said should be accurate, and that's how I'm addressing this.
Sure. How is this account true?
We'll have to stop it right there, and that will be the end of your 10-minute cross-examination, Tiny. So now, for everyone, we're going into the second round of cross-examinations. So VOR, you're going to get 10 minutes, and Tiny's going to get his 10 minutes. And then after that, we will move on to closing statements. So Dream of Dawn, if you want to take over and time this portion, you can, or I can
Yeah,
take
it's
one
10
time.
minutes, correct?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Just
for-
one thing I want to say
Right.
before we start, just to make it a bit clear. So even if you think Tiny's not answering the question, that's fine. You can always reclaim your time and ask him again. It's kind of normally, and if we were doing this like an actual court of law, the judge might interfere to point out that he isn't answering the question, but we're kind of leaving that open to the audience to decide. So it's a little bit less formal that way, but at any point, VOR, you can always say, I reclaim my time, and Tiny should be quiet for you to essentially continue with your questioning. You could do things like say, well, clearly he didn't answer my question, and move on, or anything that's in your purview, just to make sure both people are back on the same page.
Yeah, you can be vocal about it and say that he's not answering my question.
Yeah, so I apologize for not understanding that part of the debate earlier. So that's why I wanted to give him more time. And I will answer, don't add this to my time, please. He asked me a question, but because I was engaging incorrectly with that portion, if the biblical account is true, the creation account should be accurate. And as we've discussed, we see a fully formed universe with no cosmic evolution. We see heavy metals. We see massive, fully formed galaxies.
Okay, I'm going to cut you a bit off there, just because we should get back into your cross-examination. So I'm going to start on your first word. Okay,
cool. So the conversation changed a little bit from me cross-examining him and me only solely defending my belief, and he said I can't be critical of science. So I'm going to go ahead and not agree with Tiny's rules, and since I'm cross-examining him and his belief, I'm going to stick him to the issues with the secular model because I'm cross-examining him. So I would like him to start with answering, if the natural origin of the universe model is true, why is the James Webb Space Telescope seeing fully massive, fully luminous, high metallicity, fully formed galaxies at the beginning of the universe?
Oh, I'm really unclear how we're observing that fully formed universes are at the beginning of the universe. I'm not aware of this paper. I'm not aware of this source, so I don't know how to comment on it. It's something I don't have any information on. So if you're saying that there are fully formed universes, I just would like to look more into the data.
Okay. So I can show you the data and you can react in real time, or I'm ready for any questions you have for me. I think that's part of a debate, is you're ready for the questions if you're defending your worldview. This is something everybody needs to know about because it's not being supported really in scientific media, which is a problem. But James Webb Telescope spots Milky Way's long-lost twin, and it's fundamentally changing our view of the early universe. This new galaxy is the most distant spiral galaxy, and it's perplexingly similar to the Milky Way. It's a twin of the Milky Way, and it shouldn't be there. We could go through all of the issues with this. This is just an AI overview, but you can look into all of this. Yes, the James Webb has made several discoveries of early galaxies that have changed our understanding of galaxy formation. Massive galaxies in the early universe, early metal enrichment, red monsters, a big wheel. These discoveries have led to questions about how galaxies formed in the early universe, suggesting the process might have been more efficient or episodic than previously thought. Some researchers are exploring alternative explanations for the surprising brightness of these galaxies. It's a big thing. So you haven't researched this, so I guess you're not going to answer that one. So the next one is if
I have an answer if you would like.
Yeah, please.
Sure. So with new data that we have in the realm of science, this data does not debunk or completely eradicate previous data, for one. For two, to say that this shows that this universe was created, it doesn't quite have the data set responsible for this creator being involved in this process, or that the universe appeared fully formed. In fact, all this means is that the information might be slightly off than we previously thought. That doesn't mean that there is a complete negation of it or a contradiction there. It just means that we have more information available to examine that could lead to a explanation that better holds to the original data, that can be adjusted within the data, but it doesn't really show the inconsistencies of science or the inconsistencies of cosmology. In fact, it shows that cosmology is open to being wrong, and it has an ability to adapt with new information, and it doesn't show a creator.
Okay, it is showing that the Big Bang model is wrong in real time, and I understand why you guys aren't warming to this idea. It's obviously much better news for me than it is for you. But people are
You're
saying
wrong. No.
James Webb spots thousands of Milky Way galaxy lookalikes that shouldn't exist swarming across the early universe. You said it doesn't contradict it. It literally contradicts the existing model. Literally. Because they predicted population 3 stars.
Completely?
Which only, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Try and let
Because
VOR finish.
they
Okay,
predicted something called population 3 stars, which were hypothetical based on the lambda CDM model, which would have been stars with only hydrogen and helium, because they believe that heavier elements are formed through supernovae and neutron-neutron star mergers. So they expected to find, thank you for the gift, they expected to find stars with no metallicity. They're finding stars with metallicity. That exactly contradicts the prediction of the Big Bang model. Exactly. It contradicts it specifically. It shouldn't have been there. It is there. They should have gone through this hierarchical process of formation. We don't see that. They're fully formed. So it doesn't sound like you've researched that enough to talk on it. We can talk about the next thing.
You haven't researched it enough as well, and there's probably data in there that you're ignoring that shows that it doesn't debunk the entire model of the universe. Just because one part of it is off doesn't mean the entire system falls apart. This is a composition division fallacy.
It's not one part. You're misunderstanding the science. There's at least
metallicity. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So metallicity is heavy elements, and according to the Big Bang model, there would only be hydrogen and helium at the beginning of the universe. They found carbon, oxygen, nickel. They're finding heavy elements. That's one contradiction. The next contradiction is that these galaxies should form slowly over a deep process of time. They're looking back to, they thought the Milky Way would take 10 billion years to form. These things are 180 million light years after the Big Bang, according to their model, and they're fully formed. So there's at least 2 areas of contradiction, minimum. But I have looked into it plenty. You're not ready to speak on it. That's okay. If you want to, we can do this another time. I'm going to run out of time here.
See it as a contradiction. It's just available data that is a little different than what we thought before. It doesn't contradict.
That's fine. You're marginalizing it. It does contradict it, and it's we're watching the death of the Big Bang Theory in real time. You guys can hold out hope that it's going to be salvaged. They figure out a mechanism, but as of now, the data is contradicting the lambda CDM model and is supporting the creation account. So let's go to the next thing. This is kind of fun for me. I do a lot of debating on cosmology and astrophysics. Do you know why cosmic inflation was hypothesized to exist in the at the beginning of the Big Bang there was supposedly a cosmic inflation?
None of this shows creationism, first of all. Second of all, this inflation theory is just the expansion of the universe. The metallurgy or the metallosity within the universe does not contradict the previous models. In fact, it adds more information to the model so we can have a better understanding of it. It does not negate it, contradict it, or show a creator.
Okay. This is going to be a stalemate because you're refusing the data. It doesn't show a creator. It shows that the biblical creation account better fits the data, which has been my claim from the very beginning. The current data supports the biblical model that if the God of the Bible is the creator and he documented what happened, this is more in favor of that. So let's go to the next question. I'm going to run out of time. Why are there soft tissues in dinosaur bones?
The iron content that acts as a formaldehyde type preservative. So this soft tissue that we're talking about is bone marrow. Have you read Mary Schweitzer's paper?
Yes, of course I have. And it's not just bone marrow.
Okay. So what did she say after she wrote this paper about this topic?
She said that she hates the young earth creationists is using this to support the biblical account.
Say that.
Because she believes in deep time. And evolution.
For her.
Yeah. Okay, so you say the iron enriched this. How long was the test? You're speaking about something called cross-linking, which was Mary Schweitzer's solution to this problem. How long did they run the test of the cross-linked ostrich soft tissues to confirm that cross-linking was what was behind the preservation of the soft tissues?
The duration of time.
1 year. Do you think 1 year is enough time to comfortably say that therefore it could last 170 million years?
I don't think that this shows a creator. I don't think that this shows creationism, especially young earth creationism. In fact, it's just a misapprehension of scientific data. It's okay though.
You say it doesn't support young Earth creationism. What's the half-life of carbon, Tiny, in years?
I am not sure, but I know that the half-life of uranium-234 is in the millions of years. I think
Billions.
7.
Half-life is 4.5 billion years for uranium.
Well, that's 238.
Okay. Carbon is a 5,000-year half-life. Carbon will entirely decay in 50,000 years. The presence of soft tissues in dinosaur bones, you say it doesn't support young Earth creation? Yes, it does. It doesn't. It's incompatible with deep time. The idea that they've been around for 170 million years. You can just say that the data is wrong, or you don't believe in the data because in your dogma you just are going to adhere to deep time and naturalism. But the correct answer is that carbon would decay in tens of thousands of years, much less millions. They've found soft tissues in 170 million-year-old dinosaur bones now. So I don't know if you just believe in the decay rate or if you want to adhere to Mary's one-year experiment, but don't say it doesn't support young Earth creation and that I'm misrepresenting the science. It literally contradicts deep time and supports young Earth creation, especially if dinosaurs were killed recently. It's not iron that they're finding.
I'm going to have to stop you both there. 10 minutes is up, so we're going to be moving over to Tiny's time to cross-examine VOR. I just want to reiterate or remind the audience that they should be hitting that like button. Okay, tap on that goddamn screen for our good debaters. And dear God, you've been gifting. Good job gifting.
Thank you for the gifts, everybody. Wow, that's crazy.
Something.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
For the gifts, everyone.
And yeah, just a quick reminder. Yes, thank you for the gifts. The gifts do help the host and the debaters to run their channels. So we really appreciate the gifts, but your presence alone is gifts enough. We appreciate you guys being here and supporting the debates that I do, and the people who contribute to those debates. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Tiny, when you're good to go, just start your first word and I'll start the timer.
Number's a good word. I think that there's a lot of misapprehension here within the realm of science. In fact, the metallosity of the universe. You can consult Dr. Blitz about this and discuss with him how this doesn't debunk the expansion of the universe. Excuse me, I'm reclaiming my time. Okay. I'm going to reclaim my time. Yeah. So the information is out there that shows you how this does not debunk or put a nail in the coffin into the Big Bang Theory. In fact, this is one element of the Big Bang Theory that you're representing, actually misrepresenting, that you don't have the information that is proper for this data set to make the conclusion that the creator of the universe is a real thing. There's no indication of a creator. You yourself have conceded to that. In fact, you're applying a data model that has an empty set. I would like you, instead of pointing at the scientific information, point at the set that is currently empty for this creator. Still.
Is that turned over to me? I didn't understand.
I would like you to point at the data. I would like you to point at the data that distinctly shows a creator being responsible for anything without looking at the scientific data. Just what a creator did that shows us that it is from a creator.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you're not accepting my explaining how the science supports the creation account. One man, one woman, evidence for the flood, 5,000 years for the beginning of civilization.
I reclaim my time. So okay, so what is the data that this God is responsible for anything within the universe? I'm curious about that data set.
Okay, so you're going back to that. Okay, so to be clear, my debate opponent wants me to provide,
keeping you online,
for the first time in the history of the universe, tangible proof that God created us. Right? That's where we're at. I would have liked to better confirm with you, Coco, that this was the bullshit argument that he was going to use. I've said at the beginning,
this is the topic,
true?
VOR.
Right? And at the beginning,
hold on. I reclaim my time.
Okay, go ahead.
I reclaim my time. So this is a clear indication that VOR is dealing with an empty data set for creationism. Now, since we have a comparative analysis we're doing here, if there's an empty set that is going against a naturalistic set, how are we comparing an empty set as being even viable, tenable, or true? So could you please provide any data that would support creationism? And if you can't do that, then I will accept your concession.
Okay, the data that supports creationism is that the biblical account is accurate scientifically. We have a fully formed universe that's expanding. We all descend from one man and one woman. Civilization begins 5,000 to 6,000 years ago.
How? Let's go 1 point at a time. Okay. A fully formed universe. What is the specific evidence for that outside of the metallurgy? Let's go into the specifics as to the entire universe being fully formed.
Yep. We, with the most amazing marvel of astrophysical engineering, the James Webb Space Telescope at the Lagrangian 2 point has been looking with its infrared detectors at the beginning of the universe. We're to 160 million years after the creation of the universe, according to the standard model, and it's fully formed. It looks the same at the beginning of the universe as it does here. It's fully formed. There's no evolution.
Okay.
There's no cosmic evolution.
So 165 million years after the expansion would show that these are just a miscalculation in our data sets. That doesn't debunk that these formed at an earlier time. This doesn't demonstrate that creationism is valid. So again, without assuming that this is creationism, can you show direct evidence that this is creationism?
And I've said this from the very beginning, what I can support is that the data is accurately represented by the creation account in the book of Genesis.
Okay. We still
That's what I've been saying from the beginning.
Just the book of Genesis as the data set, okay? Right. So that's the claim, right? How do we demonstrate this claim to be valid?
We would demonstrate that it's valid if it's accurate scientifically.
Okay, so how is a creator being responsible for the universe accurate scientifically?
We can't prove, and I've said this from the beginning, that God created the universe, that any God created the universe, that it came about through natural processes.
That's
we
a
all have
concession.
belief systems. I made that concession at the very beginning. This is what's weird about you bringing this up
Right.
now.
And this is why this is weird that you think that anything you're doing here is showing us that creationism is true.
Wait, are you good on your part, VOR?
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm back. I had an alarm go off. Chicken alarm.
Okay. The problem here with this is all of these claims for creationism are taking into account a personal view on the account that's in the Bible and applying it post hoc or ad hoc to the universal model data sets without showing that this is viable, right? Or showing that this has any defensible position. You're not defending creationism here. All you're doing is attacking scientific information. There's no viable or tenable or demonstrable evidence that you're providing that links us to a creator outside of personal faith, personal opinion, and preference or disposition. So if you could, or if I keep asking you, if there's anything within this data set and you keep saying, I can't provide that data set, then we don't have a comparison. We don't have an analysis available. We don't have the information that sways on the side of creationism.
Yep. So at the beginning of this, when I had my opening statement, I talked about which worldview is more viable. I said we don't know which is true because we don't have proof for either.
Correct.
And I've said, and I'm going to maintain, that the more viable, more tenable worldview is creationism.
Okay.
That's what you're
VOR,
talking about a straw
I
man
reclaim
version
my
of my
time.
defense.
No, I'm not straw manning you. If you yourself are saying this is a comparison between these two data sets and you're not providing anything for your data set that shows that this creation model is viable, tenable, or even true, then this is conceding to the argument.
I'm showing you the data in favor of the creation account being true, which is that it's accurate scientifically. And I would only do that with my time. You said not to attack your worldview. by showing you the science that supports the accuracy of the creation account.
How is it supporting the accuracy of the creation account?
Because the data that science is finding is in line with and better fits the creation model than it does the scientific naturalist model, the natural philosophy.
How?
Starting at, and I think this is where the conversation could get good, starting with the creation of the universe, which is better with the biblical account, the expansion of the universe, which fits the biblical account, humankind.
Okay. How does it? Wait. Stop. Hold on. How does it fit the creation account? How specifically?
Because if the creation account were true, we would expect a fully formed universe with no cosmic evolution. I'm really surprised you're not following this. We've been talking about it for an hour.
So do we have a demonstration of a fully formed universe? We have metal within the universe, but that doesn't mean that the universe itself is fully formed. This is not a one-to-one comparison.
That's not the only piece of evidence I provided.
This is a composition division fallacy. One piece of information, therefore the entire model falls apart. But you're not showing us how this has anything to do with a creator.
I don't know when I can and can't talk. It's not one piece of data. Don't misrepresent my argument. It's multiple pieces. A lot of them you said you didn't know. You just said, I don't know this data, therefore I don't want to talk about it. I started showing you the data. It's not just metallicity.
Well, I'm not going to insert information. I'm not going to insert information that I'm unaware of.
So how are you defending that I'm not providing evidence when you don't understand the evidence I'm providing?
Well, hold on a second. How does this show a creator, specifically?
I feel like I'm in the movie 50 First Dates. If the biblical creation account is true, the data
you're not showing Well, hold on. What is the biblical creation account specifically? Let's get into specifics and how it matches the data set for our existence.
Yep. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, fully formed. God creates the sun and the moon, fully formed. There's no cosmic evolution.
What is the evidence for that?
Well, that's what the Bible says, and now the evidence is everything that the James Webb Space Telescope is observing. The evidence is what science is observing. That confirms the creation account.
So we have confirmations of fully formed stars at the beginning of the universe.
Yes, fully formed, massive galaxies.
What time frame?
With the Jades 14, they're to 160 million years after the creation of the universe, according to their model.
Okay, time's up.
So,
sorry, I'm gonna have to stop you there, Tiny. Time's up.
That's 160 million years.
And with that, we can move on to the 5-minute closing statements. Both of you guys will be able to make your closing statements on the debate. Then after that, we will get audience questions, and there will be a audience vote. For the audience vote, I've put this preface on my blog site, and I guess I say this every debate. The audience vote is like a rough estimate of who won. It's not an accurate estimate. There's so many variables playing into it, so like it shouldn't be taken as like, you know, the one and done estimate of who won. But with that, we can continue to the closing statements.
Yeah, just don't forget to like the live so that it gets to more people. And one final thing, we are biased because I saw some comments saying the hosts are biased. We're specifically biased in the favor of the guy you don't like, just to spite you. Anyway.
That's funny.
Closing statements, I believe the affirmative is first. So, VOR, you can start with your closing statement. I'll start the timer when you say your first word. You got 5 minutes.
Okay. At the beginning of this debate, I set up my tactic and my argument, which was that we don't know what's true, proven empirically on either side of this debate. Are we in a created order, or are we in a purely natural origins model? I showed the issues with the natural origin model in my opening statement, which is that they don't know where life came from, they don't know where the universe came from, they don't know where water came from. This is problematic. If in the process of time they can find these things and they can discover it, it becomes a more tenable model. What I advocated specifically is that this model that Tiny Science refused to really debate is worthy to be taught in schools as the answer for how we got here. We don't know. But what we do know is that the recent data, in particular with the JWST, but also with the other areas of science that I talked about, is coming up in support of the biblical creation account. Humans being entirely complete and separate from the animals, with dominion over the animals, civilization beginning 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. Fossilization happens when animals are rapidly buried in mud. There's fossils found all over the world. The idea that the biblical creation account, which documents a fully formed universe that's expanding, is what the Bible says, that man is made in God's image, and we have dominion over the animal kingdom as opposed to a part of the animal kingdom. The evidence for the flood, which we didn't even get into, these things strongly oppose the scientific naturalist worldview and support the biblical account. Now, I can't prove God. Anybody that knows my account, I would never try to prove God. I try to be very intellectually honest with these debates. There's evidence in favor of it, but at the end of the day, it will be a faith-based decision, which I was clear to Tiny. So when he started saying, oh, you got to prove this or whatever, yeah, we should have clearly, if he was going to stick me to, is creationism true, fact proven, has God been proven, I would have either not agreed to do it, or I would have been very clear to make sure what I can and can't do here, which is provide a defensible argument scientifically and logically in favor of the biblical account. My debate partner didn't want to address the problems with his model. He didn't know anything about the JWST and the fully formed galaxies, which I thought that in these debates you should be able to do these kind of things. Rather than having a discussion about which one is more tenable, I feel like he just wanted me to prove God, which it's 2025, and we all know better that I can't prove God. But the evidence in favor of the biblical account, I think, is overwhelming. I cover it on my channel all the time. I would be happy to do a follow-up version of this where we better set the parameters of what Tiny expects from me, including I want to be able to be critical of his worldview, which is riddled with problems. We talked about soft tissue. He says, iron. He doesn't understand the science behind that. We talked about the fully formed universe. He says, I haven't studied this data on it. He seems comfortable to just say, science has that. We're right. They've disproven God, and I don't need to defend my worldview. Now prove God. To me, that doesn't seem intellectually honest. It's not what I thought we were signing up for. And anfortunately, I think it went from being what could have been a good debate to kind of your standard anti-theist, anti-God logic, which it's a bummer to me because I think it could have been a much better engagement. If anybody wants to debate me about this, I'll stay on for a little bit afterwards if the hosts wanted to do that. Tiny, we can continue the debate a little bit. But you guys, I appreciate you bringing me on. And yeah, I'm curious to see what Tiny says at the end of this. Thanks, guys.
Are you forfeiting the rest of your time?
Oh, how much time do I have?
You have 1:20.
Oh, no. Why would I do that? No. Okay, other pieces of evidence. I could talk about this all day. We didn't get to talk about evidence for the flood. If the global flood happened, humans would tell this story. There's over 200 civilizations that talk about a global flood. They are a massive flood. And a lot of times in the story, somebody builds an ark or somebody builds a boat and saves all the animals. And a lot of times the God is mad. How do so many people around the world, disconnected without the internet, tell the same story? If the flood were true, which obviously would mean that the Bible were true, or the version of the Bible that talks about the flood is tenable, we would see geologic evidence for this. We see tremendous amount of evidence of catastrophic geologic flooding after the Ice Age in particular. If the flood were true, we would expect to find a fossil record because these animals were rapidly buried. We would expect to find soft tissue still in these animals because it happened very recently. The Bible predicted there was water underneath the surface of the earth. We find out that there is water underneath the surface of the earth. The biblical account of creation, the biblical account of what humans are, the biblical account of the flood, the evidence in favor of these things is remarkable. And if anybody wants to follow my work discussing this, this is what we do full-time with VOR. Hopefully, and if anybody else wants to debate me about which of these two models is more tenable, I would love to take that because, in my opinion, my debate opponent didn't provide any evidence for his worldview. And I think that somebody that is more able to defend their worldview,
you're out of time,
would make it a better debate. Rant over.
Oh, and also, I just want to quickly say this before we get to Tiny's 5-minute closing statements. I would love to do like a part 2 of this, and we can exchange in the DMs and make the parameters better set, basically. I would love to do that. I am waiting on news from The Office, right, to see if TikTok's going to get banned in America. If it does, we're just going to move our operations to YouTube. If it doesn't, we're going to keep doing what we do on TikTok. And then also, like, the last thing is, after this debate, everybody, we're going to be doing spontaneous formal debates. Anyone, any topic, you can come up here and debate somebody formally in a timed manner. We can alter the format and make it whatever you want it to be. We will be doing spontaneous formal debates after this, after a brief Q&A of both of the competitors and the audience vote for this debate. So just saying that. Okay, go ahead, Tiny. Or Nils, you can start the clock.
That's good on his first word. And once you say your first word, I'll start the timer.
Titmouse is a good word. So the topic of the debate is creationism true? And he even said himself multiple times, I don't have evidence for creationism. That was a concession. That was a true concession. And to say that I didn't engage in these models, I did. I gave you the information that I'm aware of. Now, to say that the information you're aware of represents the models is not accurate. I think that you need to do a lot more studying, and I think you need to do a lot more research into the actual models themselves instead of your misapprehension of them. Please learn that habit, VOR. Please. I urge you, I beg you. And I would like to point out also that my prophecy was that he was going to talk about anything but creationism, the supernatural, the divine, the evidence for that, the data set within that. So within the comparative analysis, you're saying that under these certain conditions, it would be predicted under this. This doesn't demonstrate that these models under this religion, under this Bible, is demonstrated through nature. In fact, you're using the naturalistic explanations to try and pigeonhole in and force feed in this creation account. You're not providing any evidence that this is a creation account. You're not showing us the data sets and models to present a comparative analysis. It is an empty set. You literally haven't shown us how God did any of this. You're just attacking the position of science. You're attacking the Big Bang. You're saying that instead of the lambda CDM model, it's creation, but you're using the information within the lambda CDM model. It's almost parasitic on this view. It's straw manning the position of this view. It's your misapprehension of this and your misunderstanding of science, right? Now that's okay. And for me to say, well, I don't know about something, that's totally fine. Right? That's not a concession on my behalf, like saying, well, I don't have evidence for creationism, which was a concession you made multiple times. Now, again, if you're saying that this does show creationism, I kept asking you how, and you're saying, well, the data doesn't work in science. Well, that's not showing me creationism. That's showing me your misapprehension of scientific data, and it's still not showing me the divine, the supernatural, the miraculous. I would say that my prophecy followed through beautifully. And I think that this is something you need to work on, VOR, is looking into the spiritual claims, right? Into the miraculous and showing that these are the case instead of going into the science, which you misconstrue and show that there is some sort of inconsistency there that we're all fully aware of that doesn't contradict the entire model. 165 million years is enough time for these things to form. We just might have miscalculated. It doesn't mean that there's a creator. Now, to say that there's all of this data within this, or even soft tissue in dinosaur bones, that just means that you're misapprehending what the soft tissue is. And also the soft tissue that we saw in a dinosaur bone is a rare example. It's not consistent throughout. There's more fossils that are loss of soft tissue than there are of fossils with soft tissue. So again, this comparative analysis, it doesn't match up with creationism or the Earth being 6,000 to 7,000 years old. Also, your misapprehension of radiometric dating, I'm sure, is more construed with carbon dating. These are two different processes. The isotopes within radiometric dating, or dating the isotopes of the radioactive materials that are in objects, does show us a variation that is a hell of a lot longer than 7,000 years. The construction of the Earth, or the formation of the Earth, I should say, that is through the process that takes a long period of time instead of a instantaneous manifestation is evident everywhere. The flood is an example of mythology taking over in society and saying, hey, this story has to be true because everybody talks about it. These are isolated flood incidents that don't occur at the same time. If you can date each one of these isolated incidences, you will see that they occurred throughout history at different periods in history. This means it's not a singular event. Now, another problem with the flood is these animals could not survive being in a confined space with all that methane gas that they produce.
And you're coming up on time and out.
All right.
Okay, and with that, guys, that will conclude the debate between Tiny Science and VOR. We're going to accept audience members to come up to issue their critiques, their questions, or their comments. And right now, I can start the poll. Give me 1 second. I'll start that really quick.
So we can't rebut those closing arguments? We're just like the debate's over?
Yeah, that would be the conclusion. But honestly,
Part two.
yeah, but we could definitely do a part two another day, or today we could probably like run back like an instantaneous debate if you guys want to. But yes, I've started the poll. Everyone can go vote now. It's going to be the tiny blue clipboard on the left side of your screen. And yeah, we're going to get started on the audience question, comments, or critiques. Dream of Dawn, I'll give you...
I don't want to go up.
Oh, did you have any question, comments, or critiques, or... Oh, did that person... Hold on.
Allie, I don't know if you know you're on.
Oh, Ellie, yeah. You here with us? Okay.
I'm gonna drop them because they're not talking.
Yeah, and I've made you a mod, Dream of Dawn, so you can like bring up guests and drop guests as you please. I'm gonna make some food in my kitchen, but I'm listening.
Okay, then we'll go one at a time.
Yep.
First on the list is Hammy. Hammy, you're up. Do you have a question, concern, comment for either of the panelists, or are you just here to be a hater?
For me?
Yeah, all is valid.
Oh, okay, no, I'm here for critiquing.
Sorry, could you speak up? It's kind of unclear. Your microphone seems to be a little...
Is that better?
Yep, that's much better.
Alrighty, I was saying I'm here for critiquing.
Go for
Hey,
it.
want a voice? Oh, sorry.
I have a question for VOR.
Yep.
So, you were talking about the flood and the civilizations that recorded a flood narrative. What is your response to the ones that aren't in floodplain or areas prone to flooding that live through the supposed flood who don't record a flooding narrative?
Well, let me explain more so what I think is happening here. I think it'll answer your question. I don't think that there was a bunch of people on the earth who lived through the flood and they came out the other side and were like, hey, there was a flood. I think that what happened is I believe obviously the flood happened literally. So human migration, human population of the earth was a result of Noah's sons and their wives. And so the reason why this story emanates throughout human civilization is that they were orally transmitting this historical event that happened. God was pissed. Noah built the boat, saved the animals, and the earth was destroyed. And so over the process of time, because of entropy, the story kind of changed a little bit. You know, some people, the details, obviously they change over time. But the reason why this seems to be human memory was emblazoned into the psyche of humanity is because this was the history of humanity at that time as they started migrating out into the earth. So the reason different civilizations with different languages tell an iteration of the story is because they're all retelling what they understood was the actual history. So it's not that people lived through a floodplain and didn't tell the story, and others lived and there were flood and they told the story. It's that they came off the boat and started telling the story and passed it down generationally.
So that doesn't actually answer my question. What I'm saying is that during the time frame that is usually accepted as the time frame of the Noatic flood, there are civilizations that are thriving during that time
No,
frame.
there's not.
Yes, there is. Yes, there are different indigenous cultures. There's different everything. Yes.
If you want to provide any evidence that civilization begins 5,000 years ago, between 5 and 6,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, Samaria, this is the first documented history that we have of civilizations. So I adhere to the Septuagint chronology, which says that the flood was 5,300 years ago. The first civilizations, Mesopotamia, Samaria, then Egypt at 4,800 years. Human civilization actually emanates out from that area into the world after 5,300 years ago.
We have evidence of indigenous people here in the Americas by like 10,000 years ago.
I'd love for you to share that data with me.
Yeah, it's the data that it
Just
is.
so we can, just a quick thing, I can let this go on for another 30 seconds, but just so we can move on to other people. Actually, I'll give you a minute. But after that minute, we're going to move on to the next guest.
And actually, yeah, let's do that for all the guests. Let's give them like about a minute.
So I'll engage with both his question and somebody else here. They say that the Aboriginals of Australia are 60,000 years old. What's remarkable is that's not their history. That's scientists inferring naturalism and the deep time narrative, who actually, if you research this, the Aboriginals disagreed with it, and science basically came in and said, no, you're this old. And they said, no, we have a very well-documented history. Different, when sea levels were different migratory things that they talk about, and their history is in line with the 6,000 to 8,000 years, and science said, no, you're 60,000 years old. So you get to decide if you want to believe their Aboriginal oral history or science's interpretation of the data, which is why I asked him about the Native Americans or the, that narrative, what evidence do they have that they were here 10,000 years ago? I would want to see the data, and we could go over it together in real time.
What is the current known data on the subject? Like we have archaeological evidence that proves it.
Yeah, Hammy, I'm just going to let you say some final comments, unless you wanted those to be your final comments before we move on to the next guest.
That's fun. That can be my final comment. But I just really, never mind. That's my final comment.
Okay, thanks for coming up. Have a good one. Stay safe.
Yep, we can go on to the next one.
Moving on to the next guest, we have Shadowbox, or Shadow Boss O'Brien.
O'Brien.
That's a
Hey, mate,
mouthful.
how are you?
I'm just going to call you Shadow.
No, that's
Shadow, any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, I just want to follow up with what Hammy was saying. Well, you said that the Aboriginals don't agree with what science has said, and that's a blatant lie. I am an Aboriginal of Australia, and we do agree with that. We have been in this country for 60,000 years, and you also have to explain why do the Chinese still exist and the Egyptians. If you look up what the dates that are currently online about when the flood happened, both those civilizations, plus many more, are actually older than your flood myth.
No, they're not.
Well, so everything's just a lie according to your book?
No. How old is Egypt?
From the last I checked, it was sitting about 3,300 BC.
4,800
roughly.
years ago. Yeah, 2,800 to 3,000 BC. According to the Septuagint chronology of the flood, that happened 5,300 years ago. Exactly in line with, actually, Egypt began about 200 to 400 years after the flood.
But it's still
And the Chinese came far, far later than that. But what I do want to address, so if I've misspoken about your people, then obviously I have to get my story straight, and I don't want to misrepresent your history. Can you tell me more about being an Aboriginal and about your tradition of how old your people, how long your people have been in Australia?
Well, I mean, obviously we don't have some huge, when it comes to things like Egypt and those sort of things, we don't have a civilization like that. We were still very primitive. But with most of the stories we know, it's just being told by, what's the word? It's early morning for me.
Oral tradition.
Oral tradition.
So my research on the oral tradition of the Aboriginal people is less than 10,000 years. And what I said, you said I'm lying. I can look through and find the papers where the Aboriginals are this specific group. Obviously, could be different than yours. Are saying our history is documented, and what you're telling us, scientists that have come in here, doesn't fit with our history. So people call me a liar. That's fine.
Okay.
I can find the paper if you want.
Could you please send that through to me so I can actually read that? Because I'm going off what I've been told by my own people and from what I have read up online. But if you could please send that through to me, I would much appreciate it.
So what I'm going to do is follow you. You were blocked. My mods block people they consider potentially to be a threat, so I apologize. But I followed you, and if I don't reach out to you first, just send me a message, and I'll find the paper and send it to you.
Yep. Too easy. Thank you.
Okay,
I much appreciate it.
Before we move on to the next guest, did you have any final comments, Shadow?
No. I would more just say maybe I would suggest, because we haven't really got an exact accurate record on when the flood happened, it's sort of just rough, maybe looking into a bit more on how accurate and actual dates and stuff, because it doesn't seem to match up.
With what?
Well, okay, so as an example, if everyone came from
just not to extend this too much, I'll be quick. My example is if every nationality on the planet came from Noah and his family, how does that work?
Well,
you can't just pop out random nationalities from one family. That's what I mean.
And we can have this be the last thing.
Sorry.
Well,
this is going to be the last
I love these
thing.
questions. Whatever you guys want to do, hosts. I do the show Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. I answer these questions all the time, so I'm happy to. But so just if anybody wants to speak or you want to cut me off, host, or tell me to stop talking, whatever, just let me know. But okay, so the first thing, if the flood happened, the human population growth metric remarkably lines up with 5,000 years ago, 5 to 8,000 years ago. If the anatomically modern human existed for 300,000 years, which is what the conventional paradigm says, we should have far, far more people because human growth has happened at a fairly average rate. There's been spikes and low points, and there's been obviously mass extinction event kind of things, viruses, whatever. But largely, we've seen the growth of human population over time. It's an exponential growth curve. So 2 people have 4. Then 4 people have 4, you got 16, 64. Very quickly, you end up with millions and millions of people. And this number tracks right back, and I could show you the graph on Our World and Data, sometime between 5 and 10,000 years ago when human population started really growing. So
I'm sorry to just cut you off there, VOR, because we want to quickly move on to next guest. So Shadow, if you just have some final comments, I'll give you 10 or 15 seconds.
Yeah, I understand that, and I'll talk to you more in private chat, but my point was, how does one nationality pop out several nationalities if they're all the same family? That's not how nationalities and stuff work. That's just
we're just going to stop that there, though, because we have to move on to the next guest. So thank you for coming up, Shadow.
Agreed.
Have a good one. Stay safe.
Okay, it's back. So the nationality thing, it wasn't one nationality.
We're kind of moving on to the next guest, VOR. So if you want to have that conversation, you might have to have it on your live.
Like 1 minute? Give me 1 minute just to answer it really quick.
Okay, I can give you 30 seconds.
Okay, it's not one people group, one nationality. Shem, Ham, and Japheth were all different colors. They were all different ethnicities initially. Obviously, their mothers would have been a different nationality or ethnicity, whatever. We don't know anything about their wives, but we think that it was a very diverse group of people between Shem, Ham, Japheth, and their wives. It wasn't one race, one nationality, one ethnicity. It was a variety of people, and the Bible documents this as such.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just sounds good. I'm just trying to. I wish this was sorted by who came first, but
you can start from
hard
the
to
bottom
tell.
or anywhere. But no, yeah, I totally understand. It gets confusing, who came first on the guest list.
Yeah, I'll go with Lightning and QC for now because it doesn't seem, because they have a cross in their name, it doesn't seem like we got Christian. And never mind, they're gone. It didn't connect them, so we're gonna go with
You can raise the popular names or the people that we know, like if Shark or like Cage is in there or
Okay, we'll pull up Cage. Since you recommended him. Hey, Cage, you're up. Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns? Oh,
Yeah,
and also, sorry, one thing before you start. Hammy wanted you to set up a debate, Coco. So, Hammy, if you want to just message Coco over Discord, you can probably set that up with VOR. After some discussions, Coco could act as the mediator.
yeah.
Now, Cage. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. So like yes, after this Q&A, we are doing spontaneous debates. Anyone who wants to debate on the spot on a topic of your choosing with an opponent of your choosing, yeah, we're gonna be doing that. So yeah, if you want to debate, send me a DM. We'll be doing some on spontaneous debates, basically. But go ahead.
Okay, back to Cage. Questions, comments, or concerns?
Just a clarifying question. When delivering an abductive argument for, do you take it the goal or the aim of abduction is to account for the types of virtues we care about when we're discussing plausibility of theories?
I'm an idiot. Can you explain that in lay terms, please? I'm not a philosopher. I don't study philosophy very well. So, induction is an internal argument. Abduction is external. Is that correct?
Induction is the most probable argument or most probable case. Plausibility is one that seems to account for the types of virtues we have.
Okay.
So it's just inference to the best explanation.
What's abduction then?
That is, induction was probability. Abduction is inference to the best explanation.
Okay. Yeah. So let's see if I can try to answer this cogently. So we have data, and we have biases, and we interpret the data through our biases. I try to be clear in my apologetic that I have biases. I'm a Christian. I did deconstruct and then reconstruct, and science brought me back. It's one of the reasons I defend the Bible scientifically. But I try to be as neutral as I can, although we are all biased, and I try to see what's the most likely worldview. And so one of the reasons I adhere to Christianity is I think it's the most tenable worldview, as I mentioned to Tiny Science, and I defend this for hours and hours and hours per week. So I think we all have biases, but I'm looking for the most plausible account of what in the hell we're doing on this earth. How did we get here? What are we doing here? And so there's biases, but I try to operate inside of logic and consistency in my reasoning. Does that answer the question, or no?
Well,
It was an
I'll
abstract
just ask a tiny clarifying one. I'll drop because I don't want to extend this. But when we're talking about inference to the best explanation, the types of things we're explaining are going to be things like our intuition, things like consistency, and things like parsimony. So if I deliver an argument that's using abduction as a format, why would I need to include the other sets of views that I think don't account for those things? Shouldn't I be making a case for why my view accounts for those virtues?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the nature of reality and the origin of the universe. So to balance a belief set against a prevailing belief set is a logical deduction. I think that's the inference to the best explanation. Tiny kind of tried to take that route of it. It's like, don't talk about the problems with my theory. Tell me what's in favor of your theory. I think if we're being intellectually honest, we look at the problems and the evidence in favor of both theories. And since there's really only two worldviews currently, I mean, I guess you could say Islam or Hinduism or whatever, but in my worldview, there's only two viable creation accounts, which is the scientific naturalist version, which I understand, and there is some tenability to it, and there's a supernatural creation. I think necessarily you're going to compare one to the other because we're taught the one as though it's fact. So there's even like a deschooling or deconstructing you must do if you believe in a supernatural creation because you were taught the alternative. So I think it's natural to compare the two. I don't see the problem. Now, if my worldview was only Tiny Science said he predicted he prophesied, which is weird, that I was only going to attack the scientific narrative, I could not touch the scientific narrative and only show evidence in favor of my account. But because I have a cross-examination, obviously I wanted to at least say, hey, where are you at with your worldview? But I think it's natural to look at both worldviews and try to determine which one's best. I don't see a problem with that.
Hey, do you have any last... Oh, there he goes. So we're going to bring another guest up, and because I have no idea how to choose, there's 8 guests. I'm rolling an 8-sided die. Oh, sixth from the bottom anyway. So we are gonna have sixth from the bottom. The Dissident. Do you have any? Oh, never mind. He hates us. Another quick roll. Second from the bottom. Oh, nope. Dissident is it showing he's back up? Maybe Discord's being a bit glitchy with that. It says he's up, but he's not showing. In the meantime, it's the second person on the list, so it will be Timmy. Oh no, the Dissident and Timmy are both up. Sorry, Timmy. I'm gonna mute you for a bit because it seems like Dissident is a little glitched. So I might. Seems like this is being just glitchy in general. Do you see people coming up, Coco?
Yeah, I saw Dissonance for a second, and he dropped.
Do you want to try inviting someone yourself, Coco? Because it seems to be a little glitchy on my end.
Let me get my best friend Forrest up here.
I hope it's Forrest Valkai.
It is not. Unfortunately, I know who that is, but I just want to thank Tiny and VOR, especially because I know Coco appreciates you guys being on this.
Thank you.
Being on the app for his. Yeah, of course. The real question is, did you, VOR, were you aware of what the topic was beforehand? Because it seems like you should have fleshed that out a little bit better if you weren't able to actually prove what the topic was. Did you not want to flesh that out a little bit better beforehand?
Yeah, obviously I regret that we didn't. It was a really cordial, small chat we were having, and I just I assumed, is creationism true? I assumed by having an opening statement of saying, I can't prove this, we all have beliefs, I'm going to provide evidence that it is a tenable worldview, that would be enough. But either Tiny Science didn't care about that, the mods didn't care, or they just wanted to stick me.
No,
let me just say one last thing. I debate all the time here. I've debated against actual scientists. I've had PhD doctors on my show. I have a YouTube channel as well. I wouldn't have agreed to this if it was going to be this, what I would call Bush League in sports, which is hyper-literalizing the topic instead of saying, hey, the idea that Tiny Science thought I was going to break the effing universe and provide the first evidence in the history of the world of proof of the God of the Bible is Bush League, in my opinion. So in my opinion, he took this and hyper-literalized it to try to get some traction because he had no way to actually
it's an embarrassing it's an embarrassing performance by you, and I understand why you'd be frustrated and call it Bush League, but it's literally just...
Let's be respectful.
Yeah, but to call it Bush League is also it's disrespectful of the platform because you agreed to the topic. You could have changed the topic at any time, but you agreed to it, and then you failed to do so, and you conceded within the first few minutes because you knew that you couldn't do that. So you should have exemplified what you wanted in the discussion beforehand, and if you wanted to make it tenable and not prove that creationism is true, then that could have been the topic, but you didn't do that. So to call
it didn't say prove creationism is true, by the way.
Okay, what's the name of the topic?
Is creationism true?
Is creationism true?
Okay, literally exactly what I just said. So you're just playing semantics and you're wrong.
Well, okay, so
Coco, anybody else that was Coco in particular, did you feel like the thing that we had agreed to was me proving that the God of the Bible created reality? Did you think that was the point of this debate? Honest question.
Not necessarily. It would just be more to evaluate the evidence at hand. To be honest, guys, obviously when it comes to prove God exists or prove God doesn't exist, it's almost a impossible task to prove it either way. So I think what the task is going to be is to deal with probabilities, right? To examine the data and to... Oh, what happened to VOR?
Let's go.
Oh, what happened? Where'd he go?
Oh man, did he leave?
Hey, excellent job, Tiny. I cannot believe that he agreed to this topic and then
Wait, hold on.
absolutely ran
We're
away.
trying to figure quick thing. We're trying to figure it out. So Coco, do you have a connection to him? What's happening here?
Yeah, I brought him back. Sorry about that, VOR.
Yeah, I got kicked. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Not kicked. I just my internet or something. Sorry, it was my mistake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That was almost a little concerning.
But yeah, like when we watch these TikTok debates, obviously, like proving that God doesn't exist or does exist is kind of like an impossible task, right? So I think the more important thing to do, or I think what each side is more tasked to do, right, is to evaluate the evidence and see which is more probable. So I do think that it should be like a worldview comparison and evaluating the evidence and seeing like which explanation for reality is more promising. So I don't like I do understand how one could interpret is creationism true as a task of proving that creationism is true, but I think the more like rational and justified way to interpret it would be like just providing evidence that would make it probable and more probable than other explanations that creationism is true, not necessarily a task of proving it. That's literally impossible, I think, for any.
Yeah, well, and I
person.
appreciate you saying that. And that's why I said Bush League. You know, I think people are taking more offense to that than you maybe don't understand Bush League. It's just in sports, if you do something that kind of works, but really, okay. So it was Coco and I have had a very good debate, or sorry, a very good discussion. It was very amicable. I think thought we were on the same page with this debate, which was me providing evidence for creationism being more likely. So that's why I understand why Tiny Science, when he saw that he wanted to attack that, and then he gets guys like you, Forrest, to run in here and go, "Oh, this is great." But again, I don't need to be on this debate channel, and I would have never accepted it if I was going to be Bush Leagued like that.
Right, but
I've
you
debated.
accepted
Yeah,
the
you're right.
terms
Yep.
of the debate.
I
and
did.
you
You're right.
lost
Yeah,
fair
and me
square,
and
you
the host,
conceded. It's nobody
me and the
else's fault
host
but your own.
assumed. Yeah, and me and the host assumed that it was going to be a different debate. Yep.
Yeah,
I just want to say I love shit flinging, so I'm just going to give
Yeah, the
we should
topic
probably
is
move
what
on
the
in a
topic
minute,
is.
so I'm
You
giving
agreed
it
to the debate.
another minute.
You agreed to the debate. You agreed to the debate topic. There's no
This is
excuse.
Wait,
It's like
hold
just
on.
showing up to the game and
specifically
saying,
what
I didn't.
can I speak real quick? I want to say something here. So the topic agreed upon was, is creationism true? Now, to provide that truth, we're examining the evidence and the data sets between these two claims. Now, you're providing evidence from another data set, which would be the naturalistic world, which would be the James Webb data, which would be all of this, and trying to say that this debunks this, which does not, in the positive, present any evidence for the truth behind creationism. So for me asking you for these data sets, that's all I'm doing. We're trying to have a comparative analysis, and you did not provide that data set.
Yeah, I did.
You said that this fits the model, but you didn't show how it fits the model.
But also,
Yeah.
to clarify, I do want to run this debate back, and we should communicate properly and probably make more like reasonable parameters for what the next debate is going to be. So if you two agree,
Parameters were perfectly reasonable, though. Like, is creationism true? You even gave me a definition for creationism. I mentioned it in the beginning of my opening statement. Like, this was the topic. All I was trying to do was hold you to the topic. And now you're saying that this topic is Bush League because you didn't have the data set for the topic. You were attacking the other position, and you didn't provide a defense.
Well, what you could do is, if you do want to do a part 2 later, you could do an extended thesis. So
I
there
would
could
love
be a
to.
longer thesis. You could have a longer thesis statement that might be something like, "Hey, I believe there's the affirmative of creationism with certain statements that you like you construct the thesis with certain arguments you want to defend, and then Tiny could be privy to those arguments that are going to make, and then you could trade information between each other such that you're both working with a common set of facts that could be criticized."
Yeah. I'll decide. You know, we can talk about it. I don't have any at this point. There's no reason for me to try to better define what the debate was when he's going to use that tactic. I actually sent him the definition of creationism, which I said at the beginning of this. The word is belief, the belief that the universe and living organisms originate from specific acts of divine creation as in the biblical account rather than by natural processes. He said, give me proof. It's a belief right in the definition. And he also said I can't attack his worldview, which is rather than by natural processes. He set the goalpost. And I don't care. Like, I don't care. People are going to vote. People know the work that I do. We could have had a good discussion. My interlocutor chose violence. It's fine. I don't care. Call it a loss. Call it whatever. I don't need to debate Tiny Science to do anything for my worldview,
Violence.
for my metric.
That's trying to
I like to
peacefully
debate
see
intellectually
the
honest
data.
Hold on, I'll let him finish.
Wait, I think Coco's trying to.
But with that, we do have to move on to the next guest.
that's-
Don't strawman VOR.
I appreciate you guys. Thank
Sure.
you, Coco. Thank you, Dream of Dawn. VOR. Definitely debate somebody on whether the flood happened. If that be Hammy or me, that'd be amazing. But everybody have a good night.
Oh, I'll debate you.
Yeah, we can.
So for the people that don't know, I thought that I was using young person terminology. He chose violence doesn't mean you're actually choosing violence. It's an idiom that we use to say that he chose to go in the other direction. It's just ridiculous, you guys. I don't mean he obviously didn't come
Is it
violently
true?
at me.
That's the direction of the prompt.
We have to
And
let
you
him
didn't
finish.
We're just going to
demonstrate
cut
the
this off
prompt.
for 2 seconds, though, because we want to move on to the next guest. So, Forrest, thanks for coming up. I'm going to drop you, and then Coco, if you want to bring someone up, because I have opportunity anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me bring let's get Oakdale Curtis. But yeah, let's also make sure that we, let each other finish each other's sentences. We don't want to turn it into like mumbo jumbo and like rah, 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 rah. Like we want it to be clear for the audience.
I'm sorry.
You're good. We love you, Tiny.
Oh, did that guy disappear?
Oh shoot. We were bringing
Okay, well-
Oakdale. Okay, let me do.
Want to try King
Appreciate
Joe,
straw
because that's a new person who isn't who seems to be unaffiliated, so it might be good to bring him up. Hey, King Joe, you're up.
Hey,
Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns? Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah. I just I had a question for Tiny here. What evidence do you need peer-reviewed evidence by atheists to accept evidence that supports his claim of things that support a creationist model? Because it is based on a belief, so therefore there's not going to be scientific peer-reviewed evidence to support that. So I'm wondering, do you need atheist science to prove it? Because that's impossible. That's why it kind of seems like you did set the goalpost, and I'd like to see you defend your belief in naturalism, and I'm wondering if you would be open to that.
I mean, I don't think that there's an issue with the naturalistic explanation for the universe. What would you like to know?
Well, no, I'm just saying with VOR, since you set the goalpost that his belief in creationism had to be his evidence for that has to be peer-reviewed evidence. I'm guessing, what evidence would you accept aside from peer-reviewed atheist science? So I'm just asking, what evidence would you accept?
I would say like something that fits a predictive models, or fits like a demonstration or an experiment that has valid results that shows like a creator.
Well,
Because all we're dealing with when it comes to a belief, it doesn't really have like any sort of substance outside of, well,
So
it's a
you did
position.
set the goalpost on a straw man argument, correct?
No, that's not
That's
what I did. I
exactly
said
what
it
you did.
on, is this
That is
true?
exactly what you did, and you know you did that because
Wait a
he
minute,
would
wait,
never make the
wait,
claim
this
that
is
he could prove the creator.
dishonest. Hold on a
I'm
second.
claiming
This
my
is
time.
dishonest
I'm
because
reclaiming my time.
no, excuse you. My time here is not yours, and your time is not yours. What the fuck are we doing here? Are we trying to
You
discredit
straw
somebody
man,
because
you-
you're upset that we're asking for actual evidence for a claim
I
that's being
proved to
made
you
about
that
a
you set the
creator?
goalpost
The
on a straw
actual
man
evidence.
debate.
Excuse
I'm
you.
reclaiming
The
my
actual.
time.
That's not a
I'm
straw
reclaiming
man.
my time.
No, within the truth of reality, we're looking for evidence, and
Right, and
we did not
atheist
see any
peer-reviewed
evidence
I
provided
got it.
for.
You need your
the,
biases to be
no.
confirmed. I get it.
Excuse you.
I'm
Wait,
reclaiming my time.
This is ridiculous.
I get a whole minute.
Can we?
We're not here to give you a minute.
Is this
I get a
supposed to
minute.
be?
Okay.
Sort of,
This is as
like, this
much
is
fun as I'm
stupid.
having.
I had enough
Let's
fun.
have
Thank
one
you guys
person
for
go at a
bringing me
time.
up.
King Joe, could you ask your
It's a
question
straw man.
again? Just like, wait, could King Joe? Could you just ask your question again very succinctly?
Let's keep it
I
short
did.
too.
What evidence would he accept? And I proved my point here. So I'm done here. Really, I proved my point.
atheist
That he set
evidence.
the goalpost on a
Wait,
straw
let
man
King
argument.
Joe finish.
He knows that he did it. Everyone here knows that he did it, except for the people that support his biased confirmation. And that's all I set out to do. I appreciate you guys, VOR. You know you're my
man,
guy,
thank
man.
you.
Continue doing what you do, brother.
Hate the dishonesty and the straw man. Thank you.
Have a great day, Tiny.
The performance.
With that, we'll move on to the next guest.
Let's say something real quick, Coco.
Go for it.
Do you think that that was a very honest thing to do? The honest debate we're having here is creationism true? And we're looking at the data sets within this, right? And for VOR to not provide the data sets within this, attack the opposition, and then say I set the goalpost at a position that he was unable to meet, this is just him crying about this.
I think.
By the way, you conceded 9 times. There was 9 concessions here. 9.
I would just say, like, I do think we need to do a better job of like communicating and set the parameters to be a little bit better. I think that there were certain things that were expected and certain things that weren't expected, and yeah, there's just like some miscommunication. And if we can communicate that, it would have been like a better debate. But yeah, I think. But with that, we can
Appreciate a good show. That was a good performance by your friend King there. That was a good performance.
Yeah, King could have been a bit nicer. It was a bit aggressive, but
No, I stand King. That shit was hilarious.
but
I'm in it for the funnies, and he reclaimed his time. What a king.
yeah, but yeah, we don't want to encourage drama, but drama is entertaining and sometimes funny. But we'll move on to the next guest.
Men just want to watch the world burn.
We do have Haru. His debate is going to come after this Q&A. And then we will start some instantaneous debates. But yeah, we'll accept some more questions. Haru, do you got any questions, or are you just waiting for your debate?
I have one thing to say before my debate. VOR and Tiny, what % of the popularity vote do you think you got? Like, I did the calculations.
Oh, for the debate?
Don't
For
reveal
the popular vote. This was one of the closest.
For like the presidency? I'm just kidding. Oh, I don't. So, I like you said, I conceded 9 times. The thing, I don't expect to win this debate because of the interpretation of my interlocutor, my debate partner, of the topic. I can't provide him proof of creationism, and the evidence that I was going to provide, that I was providing, was the scientific accuracy of the creation account.
Topic.
So once that was determined, obviously I kept continuing to try to not attack his worldview because he said not to, and I tried to keep providing evidence for my worldview. I figured it would be close-ish. I mean, I would guess, just my intuition would say I probably got around 42%, and he probably got 58, something like that. 40.
And Tiny, how much do you think you got?
Closer, I think it's going to be like somewhere around 48 to 52, I'd say.
But
How did you guess it perfectly?
do not reveal the results, though. Save it for later. Do not reveal anything.
When I stay up for my debate, just stay muted.
But DM me the calculations that you made. But I will be making my own calculations. But we'll leave Haru on the panel because he's waiting for his debate, and we'll get the next guest. We have like a few more. We have like about 6, and I think we should be finished after that.
Hey, what's good?
Yep. Welcome.
Well, I do feel like I'd like to see VOR debate again. I agree that because of the topic as it was stated, that made Tiny's position a lot easier to defend than yours. I do feel that given the way the topic was phrased, that he did come out on top, but I do look forward to hearing more from you. I like some of the stuff you had to say, but one thing I wanted to ask is with there only being 8 survivors of the supposed flood, what is your position on how they survived the, genetic results of constant interbreeding? Because typically what you need for, a civilization to not go extinct and not become really sick and stuff like that because of inbreeding. You know, there's the 5,500 rule. And I feel like 8 survivors is incredulous.
Far less than 5,500.
Yeah, far less than 5. Well, no. When I say 5,500, it's 50 slash 500. So it's like 50 people is the minimum required. Although, like, in terms of colonizing a new planet, you know, you're looking at something closer to like 160 people, just to be safe. But 50 is what a species reasonably needs in order to not suffer extreme, you know, effects of inbreeding, like we saw in the Appalachian Valley, where after several generations of this happening, you know, they're incapable of speech. And this isn't an isolated incident. We know that this isn't just their genes, because this has happened in many different areas, royal families that were interbreeding and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So I got you. It's a really good question. First, I want to thank you for, I think it was a very honest feedback on it. And I agree. You know, it's, I would like it to, I wouldn't have agreed to this if we were going to go that route, because I just don't have the time for this kind of thing. But I also, I appreciate it. But so but I think it was a fair assessment. I would agree under the premise that I had to prove creationism, I couldn't win. So to make it close, I think was a pretty good underdog story. So I appreciate you saying that. Now, the inbreeding is a great question and fundamentally is a concern, because inbreeding is problematic. You know, the Whitaker family you mentioned, that could be 10, 12 generations. It's gone off the rails. God bless those people. Very difficult physiologic situation they're in. The thing you're not accounting for here, and this is actually, I'm going to turn this around for evidence of the viability of the creation account. This is one of many such pieces of evidence kind of embedded in Scripture. The fact that humans today with rampant inbreeding born mutations very quickly reach mutational meltdown is something that we've seen proof of concept. I mean, you mentioned the royal family. Major issues, physiologic issues, even inside of that lesser inbreeding. So the Whitakers are a great example of just how quickly things can go off the rails. What you're not accounting for, and obviously you may or may not believe the story at all, is this was a much more robust, much stronger gene code that they started inbreeding from. So if the Bible is true,
What's
Adam
the
lived
evidence of
900.
that?
The Bible. I mean, so we're using the Bible to support the Bible here. According to the Bible, Adam lived 940 years. Scientists today.
So I'm actually very familiar with the story you're referencing, and I know the claims that are made there, but there's nothing that I'm aware of in there that indicates that they have some type of super genes. That's just reading into it, in my opinion. Eisegetical.
Okay. So Adam would have been the first human, and the way that the arrow of the universe goes, because of the increase of entropy, more mistakes are introduced sequentially. The more time, the more mistakes. It's one of the reasons why I think the theory of evolution is untenable. This scenario that Adam was the first human without error, and that mutational errors began to occur immediately upon, which was inbreeding initially, immediately upon reproduction, is what we would expect to see. Now, is there data inside of the Bible that supports this? And there is, and I'm going to show you what it is, and it's really remarkable. So this isn't something that most people... Oops, there's my face still. Flip my camera and save it. Is it going to flip? Okay, here we go.
Also, really quick, let's... I guess this will be the last thing, and then let's try to get to the other guest.
Okay. So this is a timeline, the chronology of the Septuagint timeline, from creation 7,500 years ago to the flood 5,300 years ago. This is Adam's lifespan. These blue bars represent lifespan. So there's a direct correlation between lifespan and genetic mutation. So if we were to read this together, how old can humans get, from Scientific American, a scientist working on longevity says if we can eliminate through CRISPR technology the mistakes inside of the gene code that have been introduced because of entropy, they think that they can extend human life to 1,000 years. Removing all mutations inside of the gene code could extend our life to 1,000 years. Now, back to the biblical timeline, in theory, perfect gene code with no corruption. As introductions start to be introduced, lifespans decrease, but we still have people living almost 1,000 years. Is 700 years for Lamech. Directly after the flood, one second, let me make this last point. Directly after the flood, lifespans begin to plummet. 500, 400, 300, 200, 240, 120. We see where beforehand, with genetic diversity and a stronger gene code with with less mutations, we see longer lifespans. Then the massive genetic bottleneck, like you're talking about, down to 8 people, the lifespans dramatically decrease, including Isaac, who was 120 years old and said, "Few and short have been the days of my life compared to my ancestors." So we see in real time rampant aggregation of mutation. And last point I'll make, then at Moses, at Sinai, God says no more inbreeding. That's when he makes a rule in the Sinai covenant that we can no longer do inbreeding, because the trend was us Whitakering ourselves out of existence.
Okay. And with
So
that, we do kind of have to move on to the next guest.
can I ask one quick final question?
Sure.
With me?
Yeah, let's try to keep
Okay,
it
so
if possible.
all right, so I understand that that's the biblical perspective. Do you have, and because of brevity, just please DM it to me if so, anything that corroborates that this is happening to the human body from a scientific perspective, and it's not just biblical headcanon, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll answer that. So we see that depending on the metric, 4 to 40, maybe even as much as 70 mutations per generation. And we know scientifically that most mutations are deleterious. Some are neutral. Science needs some to be beneficial, but the vast majority are deleterious. So we are seeing mutation aggregation in real time, from every generation. This is how the Y chromosome is dated through the molecular clock. This is how mitochondrial DNA is dated through the molecular clock. It's the steady rate of mutation aggregation. So in this thing, to finish that point, the idea would be that mutation still happened and was a huge detriment, just that the gene code was less mutated, less damaged, so there was enough headroom where instead of us being extincted through mutational meltdown, the lifespans were just dramatically reduced, which ended up being a factor of about 6 in just a few generations.
What's the source for this?
Which source? Mutational meltdown, the biblical chronologies, lifespans, what do you want?
All of them.
Okay.
There's probably a lot of them. Would it take a while to list them out?
I'll try to do it in 2 minutes.
Go for it.
In the interest of science. So this is the chronologies specified specifically in the book of Genesis through the begetting ages, Genesis 6, Genesis 8, and I think Genesis 10. I got to find that exactly. But it says that at 230 years, Adam had Seth. At 210 years, he had Enosh. And then he died. We have the specific dates of the ages of the patriarchs. So I can show you that on the biblical
So this
timeline.
this is in the timeline of, okay, so what is the source outside of the Bible that demonstrates this to happen?
But
like,
before
in
that,
history?
we do have to be respectful of like Haru and Mel. They wanted to like do their debate. I'm not
If
sure.
Mel's okay with waiting, I'm okay with waiting.
Okay. Mel, is Mel in here?
Yeah, Mel's been waiting to come up.
Oh wait, what's her account? What's her account name again? Oh,
It's legit
She's
Mel.
in guest request, I think.
Okay, I've been waiting for like 30 minutes, people, to
I've
ask
been
a
waiting
goddamn
for
question.
2
I kept getting
hours
pushed
now.
back.
Oh wait,
I
never
kept
mind.
getting pushed back. So,
go ahead.
damn.
You're good. We'll start your
okay.
debate soon.
I'm sorry. I'm coming in hot, and I apologize. But 30 minutes is a long time. So, I wanted to come up here real quick for VOR because I was doing some like research as far as like I remember when I think it was Hammy that came up talking about indigenous people in North America. According to the National Endowment for the Humanities, the first human beings to arrive in North America came over a land bridge from Asia and Siberia approximately 13,000 to 13,500 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of wanted to point that out real quick. Also, I wanted to bring up an argument to combat that Noah's Ark, like as far as like the population in Noah's Ark doesn't make sense for if it actually happened. The reason why I say this is because according to the United States Census Bureau, the population, which is in the millions, around 4,000 BC to 3,000 BC estimated when the flood was supposed to happen, was around 7 million. And then in 3,000, it went up to 14 million. And if only 8 people survived, hypothetically, every single woman that have had to survived via, mating with their cousins and second cousins would have had to have 300 babies per 6 months, and that is not scientifically or biologically possible.
That's not true.
How? Okay, what woman do you know has had 2 babies in the span of 6 months? Go.
Well, that's not your math doesn't add up. So piece by piece, let's go from the last one you just said. You said estimated with the census data. Obviously, we have no idea how many people were there. Because they weren't doing a global census back then, so it's estimated, and I would love for you to look into where the estimation number comes from.
It's right there.
Yeah, what does it come from? What is it?
Historical estimates of world population according to the United States Census Bureau: 4,000 BC, 7 million. Population in the millions. When lower and upper estimates are the same, they're shown under lower. Right. So this is the estimate around the same.
Right. It's an estimate based on what? Where are they getting the estimation from? Because you don't have that. Where are they getting the estimation from?
Here's your sources.
Okay. Yeah, we can look up
1980, 1974, 1995, 1970. Yep. Yeah, there's your sources, including the United Nations. Twice.
It doesn't... Okay. I don't... so here's what I'm saying. We don't have a global census of the amount of people that were on the Earth at that time.
That's why it's an estimate. I already said that.
Right. It's an estimate. And what I can tell you is that estimate... is far closer to what would have happened if human civilization started to exponentially populate 5,000 to 6,000 years ago than if anatomically modern human. How old is anatomically modern human according to science?
Why are we
1,000 years at the oldest?
300,000 years. So if humans have the population has. The human growth, the human population growth metric has stayed largely the same for known history. I forget, it's like 1.2%, something along those lines. Again, there's high points and there's low points. So there's times of famine and there's times of feast. So it's not an exact number, but we have a general percentage increase that humans do under normal circumstances. It's an exponential growth curve. So 4 people have 16, have 64, have 180, have whatever the numbers are. Yep. So you end up having an exponential growth. Us taking the amount of people that are on the Earth today, 8 point whatever billion and change, and taking that human population growth percentage backwards on an exponential curve points to the beginning of the exponential growth of humans being between 3,000 and 10,000 years ago. That's just looking at the actual mathematics of the rate that we know that humans increase in population. If they want to assume that 8,000, 10,000 years ago there were 7 million people, it's going to be an assumption because we don't have a global census at that time.
So that's why it's an estimate. I've already stated that. Also, on top of that, like I already said, if it were, let's just say for a minute that even if the estimates were wrong, how do we go from 8 to 8 billion in the span of how much time it's been since 3,500 BCE? That's impossible. Biologically impossible. The hypothetical for that, I'm still talking. The hypothetical for that, like I've already stated, was around 300 babies per 6 months. With 8 people who've procreated with their siblings, that's not genetic diversity.
Your math is wrong, and I'll show you.
How is it? I'm looking at sources. Where are yours?
I'll just show you, because we'll just do math together.
Perfect.
Okay,
yeah.
Can you make my screen bigger, Coco? Would that be okay?
Yeah, I can do that. And then we do probably have to end it soon.
Nils waited a long time, so as long as it's up to you guys, as long as she's willing to go, because she waited for a while. So
also really quick, Nils, what do you think? Should we do like 2 more questions and then move on to the other debates?
Yeah, I think we can do 2 more guests. Let me just see how many guests there are.
What source are you using so I can look at it too, actually?
Our World in Data, the size of the world population over the long run. That should pull it up. If you look at Our World in Data, population growth over time. How has population growth changed over time? Our World in Data.
Cool. All right.
Okay, so this has a graph of the growth history of human population. Now, in this scenario, they say at 10,000 BC, the population was around 4 million. So this is another estimate. But what we want to look at is the growth, the exponential growth curve. So what you see is that the population growth, this is according to standard conventional science, was flat, entirely flat. 10,000, 8,000, 6,000 BC, at which point between 4 and 6,000 BC, which would be 6 to 8,000 years ago, the increase begins and exponentially grows onto what we have today. As far as your data, I'm going to show you just, I say your math is wrong. I'm not trying to be cheeky. We're just going to do some quick math here. And
while you do that, why are you able to use an estimate and I'm not?
You can.
Okay, so why is it a problem when I use an estimate?
If it's estimated to be 4 million or 7 million or 2 million, it's an estimate. What I'm looking at and what I'm being critical of isn't the amount they had back then. I'm saying that we don't know what the amount is. What we know is that there was no movement at all until exactly when.
It also is inquiring on the same exact graph that you're looking at, the projected population in 2036 and 2058, but we're not accounting for wars like you said, huh?
Wait,
right.
we have to let him finish too. Let's not interrupt him.
Right. Okay. So, and I'll address that in a second. But let's just do this is a calculator. We're going to do this together. So there were 6 people reproducing. We don't think his wife was producing. They were too old. Okay. So let's say they each had, let's say 6 children per couple. Is that safe? Do you think? Or let's do 4. Let's say they each had 4 children. Okay. This is how an exponential growth chart works. Every 20 years, a generation time is 20 years. So follow me on this. 6 times 4, that's 1 generation, 20 years. This is 2 generations, 40 years. Oops, that didn't do anything, did it? Okay.
Press equal.
I have to do it each time. What do I have? I press equal and it'll keep doing it? Okay, that's good. So 6 times 4, so if I do equal, so that's 1 generation, that's 20 years. 2 generations, 40 years. 60 years, 80 years, 100 years, 120 years, 140 years, 160 years, 180 years, 200 years, and we start to get into funny numbers because exponential growth curves do this. My point is you were giving me some numbers that they had to have 300 children per lifespan, and that's not what needed to happen. They could have had a very conservative estimate.
Did you forget the rest of my sentence where I said about genetic diversity? And how if we didn't have genetic diversity,
life expectancy,
the decay
and we're
factors
expecting that these people actually grew at the same rate across the board. This is very narrow when it comes to the margins of information that we're demonstrating here. We're not factoring a lot of key elements like the life expectancy, the atmospheric conditions. We're not expecting every single generation to be growing this fast. So there's a lot of data that's being misconstrued here. There's a lot of data being left out.
Sure. Yeah. In 200 years, I had 60 trillion people or whatever. Yeah. I'm giving there's a margin here of the ebbs and flows, which is why what I'm communicating to you. I'm efficaciously communicating to you that there has been a known population growth percentage over time. Again, there's been high points and low points, but it's been an average, whatever it is, 1.2%, 0.6. I don't remember the number. I could look it up right now. If you take the known rate of human population increase and you run it backwards on an exponential growth curve, you cannot get 300,000 years. You cannot get 100,000 years. You cannot get 20,000 years. 4,000 to 6,000 years is a comfortable number, assuming there's going to be a high death. There's going to be, again, feast and famine. But the 5,000 years of human growth better lines up with the data than 300,000 years of anatomically modern human, which I obviously have researched this.
Using a funneled line of reasoning that demonstrates that it's only one factor that you're putting in within this, or even the life expectancy with this, you're excluding variables that are obvious, like massive wars, or even societal conflicts, or even conditions of the planet that show us that there's people that would be not able to reproduce. Like you're limiting the data also, again, just like the entire debate, you're not demonstrating a creator.
Where have I limited the data?
Okay,
where have I limited the data? I'm sorry, I have to answer. I'm becoming less and less.
Generalization that you're assuming that these populations would grow at an exponential rate that's steady. Now, there's no indication that this would be a steady exponential growth rate because we're not factoring in other things like deaths.
Yes,
infant
there is deaths,
mortality?
there is war. All these things are true. What I'm telling
Wait,
you is we have
order. I'm
observed.
gonna have to stop you both
Hold
here
on,
for
hold
2
on.
seconds. Coco's trying to get in.
Yeah, so this is becoming sort of like, another debate against VOR. So, like,
That's true.
I have to cut this. VOR, I'll let you.
That's bullshit. I'm sorry.
Wait, guys, let's try to.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I want to do this, Tiny. I want you to tell me where I've bullshitted once tonight.
This is Coco's panel, y'all.
Multiple places. Coco,
Sure,
go
This
go ahead.
this is Coco's panel, y'all.
Guys, let's keep the decorum. VOR, I'll let you get the last statement, and we'll move on to the next guest.
My last statement would be the panel has brought up some really good questions. If I didn't have a sufficient answer for these questions, I would disbelieve in the Bible. A lot of people don't know this about me. I don't have to go too far into it, but I have a ton of trauma and religious trauma in my life. I kind of hesitantly came back into Christianity. At any point in my research, if I found something that just wasn't compatible with reality or the data, I would have forsaken my beliefs, potentially anyways. At least I tell myself I would have. If you or anybody have these kind of questions about the feasibility of young earth creation, of the biblical scientific account, please, I do the show Tuesday, Thursday, Sundays at 9. I like to keep them respectful, although, sometimes they don't end up being that way. But I would love to have you guys on to answer any of these questions because they're valid questions. And I understand we've been taught one thing. I'm swimming very hardly against the current here. I understand this is an unpopular opinion in a lot of ways. But I aim to use science, logic, reason, and have a cordial discussion about this. And if you have legitimate questions, I would love any questions. I'd love to answer these. So I do the show Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Coco, I appreciate you having me on. We'll talk whether or not we do it again. But yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your viewers. I appreciate everybody showing up.
Yeah, and
yeah. I thought they were closing it out.
Yeah, so Tristan's gonna be the last question. But yeah, I do want to say, VOR, thank you for taking the time to come onto my platform out of all the platforms to debate. I appreciate you being here, and I'm always open-minded to learning new information. And I do respect the time and dedication that you've put into this. You've done research on this, and I'm sorry about the religious trauma that you've gone through, but I respect the massive amounts of dedication you've done to this, and it's an honor to showcase this to all of the people that follow me and be the person to host that debate. I genuinely appreciate it, and I appreciate you being here.
That means a lot, and I really appreciate it, man. Absolutely happy to do it, and thanks for having me on. Thanks for the kind words too.
Yep. And Tristan, you'll be the last. You'll be the last question, and then we do move on to Haru versus Mel, and then any other person who wants to come up and do spontaneous debates over any topic. If you're ready to go, we can do it. So go ahead, Tristan.
Real quick, I just want to say thank you for having me up, Coco. For a second, I thought I wasn't going to get the spot. Anyways, I just want to say real quick, Tiny, I feel like you did great. I do wish you would have been a little bit more aggro on VOR, avoiding some of the questions, or trying to shift the goalpost. And I try not to be biased in debates here, but VOR, I did have a question. Why use something like galaxies forming in 100 million years as evidence for creationism, and why concede to losing multiple times in the debate, willingly, and then proceed to say that you didn't concede?
I never said I didn't concede. Once I understood the tactic that Tiny was using, which was that I had to prove God, I understood that I can't provide that evidence. I said that in my opening statement. It didn't matter. My goal was to, and is always, to provide evidence in favor of my worldview, which I'm very candid about, is a worldview. We all have beliefs about how the universe got here. I tried to respect his demands with this, and I tried to continue to provide evidence if the biblical account was true. As far as the creation of the galaxies, my point then, and still is, the data coming in from the James Webb better supports the biblical creation model than it does the lambda CDM model. This is, at this point, I guess I can't say fact, but very strongly, you could say very strongly that the data better supports the biblical model than does the lambda CDM model. And so that's the point of this is, like I said earlier, currently we see a fully formed universe that's expanding, which is exactly what the biblical account says. We don't see a hierarchical cosmic evolution.
Right. Well, I hate to be a broken record, but in terms of the fully formed galaxies, I don't understand why if science gets something, I guess if you want to say wrong, it immediately leads to creationism or God. I mean, like, again, and maybe you can show me, or maybe I'm ignorant or I'm not tracking, but again, I'm not seeing how fully formed galaxies or galaxies forming faster than we thought they would form leads to God. Maybe you can show me. And then after that, I'll get off. I don't want to waste any more time here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So it's like I said to the guest that asked me about abductive versus inductive reasoning, we have to look at the data in contrast or compared to the prevailing models, at least the ones that we're debating, and the two real viable options in reality, which is the natural origin of the universe or a created order. We have to look at which worldview the data better fits. Now, in transparency, which I always do with my channel, there's data that contradicts the creation account. I understand that. There's data, okay, there's data that supports the creation account. There's data that contradicts the scientific naturalist account. There's data that contradicts it. It's how this works. So that at the end of the day, we're going to have to choose what we believe in this. As I discuss the formation of the universe or the creation of the universe, science may find at 100 million years or 50 million years these population 3 stars with no metallicity. They may find fragmented galaxies. That could be. This is the moment right now I can speak of, is that the data they find is fully formed, fully mature, fully luminous, fully massive galaxies with luminosity, or with metallicity, I apologize. So that is what the Bible would have predicted. If they find forming galaxies, then I can't say that any further. But at this moment, the data is supporting the biblical worldview.
How does it fit the model of the Bible? Because that's just a vacuous claim. You're just saying it does, but you're not explaining how. It lacks explanatory power. So it's just a baseless assertion you're making.
Yeah, okay, you don't understand what I'm saying.
You're saying, but you're not providing the model that shows that this is creationism. Sorry, but I'm tired of the dishonesty.
Sure.
Okay,
yeah, so
this
is the last thing. So the way that
Coco's trying to get in here, so if we could just give him a second.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that, and then I'll be done answering whatever the next question is or whatever.
Okay.
So the way that it better fits the creationist model is according to the Bible, God built the earth fully formed, the sun and the moon fully formed, the stars fully formed. Day 4, there was a complete universe in the status that it is right now. This is what the Bible says. And currently, if the Einsteinian synchrony convention is to be trusted, and we're looking back in time, if that's true, at the beginning of the universe, it's fully formed. It's what the Bible reports having been accurate, and it doesn't fit the Lambda CDM model. It's very simple. I've made this point 10 times tonight.
Okay, we'll end it there.
Yeah.
A baseless assertion. And that's
wait, real quick. Yeah, I wanna just say my last thing and get off here. I'm not gonna ask a question. I just want to say again, Coco, I'm so sorry, man. But again, thank you for having me. And if I could sit here and debate VOR, I really would. But obviously, I can't.
Well,
again,
I'll
thank
go
you all
take
for
a
having
break,
me.
and then I'll go live, and you can debate me.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Again, thank you. I appreciate you guys.
And yeah, we'll end it there, and we'll move on to the next debates. Dream of Dawn, you're good, right?
Thank you, everybody.
And a glass of water upstairs, so once I do that, I can do the timing.
Okay, cool. And it's gonna be
like construct my script, or so to say, as far as like my introduction, so I know what to like go off of and get sources together. Hold on.
I'm extremely scared. Just to put that out there.
I'm gonna drop, guys. I love your faces. Thank you.
But really quick, Tinysmawz. Also, thank you for being here as well. I also appreciate the time and effort that you put into doing your research and the dedication to debating on my platform. I do appreciate you. I do appreciate everybody who's participated today. Tinysmawz, you're awesome. And also, Tinysmawz was the voiceover for my debate promo, I think for either this event or the last event. So I couldn't have done it without Tinysmawz. Everyone that's here, 176 people, please follow Tinysmawz, show up to his lives. He makes excellent content, and he's a really good friend. We appreciate Tiny.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I don't appreciate being strawmanned on what the argument was at the end there. I think that that was dishonest, and I think that this just shows the level of indoctrination that this type of position has, or this worldview. I think that King, you did a great job of showing that dishonesty also as well. Thank you for that. I appreciate the performances done by both VOR and the very good acting skills they have, and the burden shifting and dishonesty within their fallacies. Thank you. You guys have a great night.
Can I make one critique real quick, Coco, for the last debate?
Sure, but let's also be respectful of VOR, but also, yeah, I get it. You know, there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
But